Recorded live on the North Coast, Scotty does a show with guest John Quintana. Tonight, the latest on art showings, reactions to the 2024 presidential election, and a round of rapid fire, today's top 5, and more. And now, what you get when you order Joe Rogan on Wish.com, Scott Marion.
All right, everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the show. Again, I want to give a very, very quick shout out to Chris Hunter. Thank you for coming on, dude. Such a great guy, super inspiring, and somebody I was really trying for a long time to get back on the show. I couldn't think of a better guy to be able to relaunch what I'm doing here. And again, it was a few years in between when I was really testing the waters with this in order and to get things going, and to have him come back on and share his story and how he feels about certain things. Just, again, a super straightforward, honest guy, super passionate, love what he's doing, love you, brother, and really appreciate all the feedback and just coming around and really, it's inspiring. So again, big shout out for you, Chris. Really appreciate you coming on. And again, through him, I was able to meet a few more people through social media, a few more kick-ass bands. So I guess I'm going to be out and about. So again, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. A couple updates real quick. I did have I had 3 pieces showing at the Area Arts Council. Those pieces are not there anymore, but now I have 9 pieces there that I just dropped off yesterday. They're going to be, they're all of my 11 by 14 of my famous line of all of the pop culture, which I'll be putting all the pictures up here so you guys can see. These pieces are ones that I've had for a while. These are all black and white. Most of these are graphite and ink. There's all going to be somebody there that you know. These are pieces that have sold anywhere from $100 up to $300 a piece. These are all on sale for $75 a piece, or if you buy 2 or more, you get them for $60. At the Elyria Arts Council right now, again, we have 9 pieces downtown. These are all original pencil pieces. These aren't prints. If you're really wanting to have one of my original pieces, go ahead and check them out. And some of the ones are going to be there, like Nirvana, Madonna, Freddie Mercury, Scott Weiland, Guns N' Roses, and a few other ones too. So you go down there and check them out. They're a great organization. They're really trying to do something cool downtown in Elyria there. And again, I have 9 pieces. They're all original, and there's probably gonna be a lot of other cool stuff for you to go check out there too. So, along with the Marion Creations update at the Wellington Arts, I want to give a shout out to having, it was the Wizardry and Warfare. I had a few pieces showing there, and I'm going to be getting those back here this week. Having a few pieces showing downtown was pretty fun in my hometown. I had some people going around during their gallery walks, taking some pictures and sending them to me. That was always kind of fun, and hopefully I'll be able to show some pieces there, although I'd still have the picture of the town hall. 44090 is actually showing in the town hall right now, which I have an interesting story about that. Speaking of which, I've been flirting with the idea of doing a mural or a series of pieces over at the Avon Lake High School. I was meeting up with Coach John Sedlick and, of course, Scott Sedlick, who's the head coach there. Scott knows what, obviously I wrestled with Scott at Wellington, and John was our head coach there, and being able to paint the Jason Hartman Memorial not once but twice. Again, I wish I never had to do it, but being able to do it twice in my high school was quite an honor. So Scott reached out to me about doing something in his room. We'll see if it works out. I've got some mock-ups for him, and we'll see if the program goes ahead and okays it. It'll be fun. It'll be exciting, and most importantly, I want to be able to make sure that I give him a room that's going to be different. It's going to stand out, and it's just going to look, quite frankly, just badass more than any other room. And What I will tell you is what I told Scott. If his program wasn't doing well, if he wasn't working hard, if he wasn't getting the results that he was getting, then no, I wouldn't be interested in this. But I knew from the beginning when he took it over. Matter of fact, I sat down and did a special with him on the Ohio Wrestling Insider video YouTube channel. Sure, check that out if you can. I knew what he was going to do because of his work ethic, and the work ethic came from his dad. So we'll see how things go with that. Also, on the same note, I have a couple ideas. So my friends out there in Salt Lake, get ready. We're going to be possibly getting something together here soon for a recon visit to be able to check out some galleries and things there. And, of course, down in the islands, I just got my passport renewed, so I can't wait to get back down the islands and check things out there to possibly showing some work and maybe even teaching some people how to beat each other up. That's always fun for me, too. And last but not least, as far as the art goes, I did mention when I had the show with Chris that I am looking to rebuild my website, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. If there's anybody out there who's looking, who's interested about building a website and wants to work together, I had a couple great guys that were helping me out with that before, but unfortunately we're a few thousand miles away and makes things a little bit difficult. But there's some people in the area here that are looking to do something cool, something fun, something creative. I'm looking to partner up with somebody to not only to have some fun and get some art out there, but also make a couple bucks too. I feel that the work that I've done and the work that I'm going to continue to do and some of the artists I have around me and even more I'm going to be gathering, we're going to be doing some cool stuff, and they're going to make some good gifts for people. And I feel that not having something that's active, that's going right now, that's having some original pieces and some prints being available, I'm costing myself thousands of dollars every month. So if somebody's out there that's wanting to collaborate on something cool and getting throughout my entire life, I've always had when it comes down to it, I've always had my artwork. And if there's somebody out there that's passionate about building websites, let's do something really cool and really different and really fun. And I don't know if you guys can hear the train in the background, but that's always pretty sweet too. The train is rolling. That's right. That's what you're hearing. And let's get together. So if you're out there, reach out to me via Facebook, of course, here on YouTube, and see what we can do. So when it comes to, last but not least, I got a couple pieces of news that I want to talk about, that I get asked about a lot. In the world of combat sports and mixed martial arts, which of course is very passionate for me, I'm still active in it, not as a competitor, but still teaching and training and working with a few people. We'll see how it goes from there. I always get asked about this gentleman all the time, which is Conor McGregor. In the world of not only mixed martial arts, but in the world of pop culture, Conor McGregor has eclipsed the sport. And I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me and asked me, to comment on his recent situation. Conor McGregor, I don't want to get into the details here on YouTube because it gets to be a little grotesque. However, he's just been found guilty of doing some bad things. And the thing, whether or not he committed a crime, I wasn't there. I don't know. However, what I will share with you is this person that lodged the complaint. That complaint happened in December of 2018. Conor's son was born in January 2019. So, as great as a performer as he is, as great as he is at selling pay-per-views and stuff, whether or not he committed a crime, he did what he did when, quote, the love of his life is 8.5 months pregnant. So, my take on that is, it hasn't changed. If somebody, if Conor McGregor called me right now and wanted me to coach him, of course I would. Of course I would. The payday would be the best I've ever had. The notoriety would be the best I'd ever had. And if that guy would listen to me, or quite frankly anybody, I think he would get some results. But I wouldn't want to live next door to that guy. So that's my take on the Conor McGregor situation is, you can say what you want about whether or not he committed a crime, whether he did or whether he did that. Now, again, you can check it out. There's other videos out there that go through the specifics. Where I get at is where the, quote, love of his life was at when he did what he did. And when he got on the stand and admitted to doing what he did. So that's a bad guy. And unfortunately, in a sport of cage fighting where you have to convince people that you're not a dirty, rotten cage fighter, that's when the type of behavior that you have. So, and enough on that. And speaking of combat sports, this is my first recording since the 2024 election. How you guys doing out there? How you feeling? How you relax? I'm willing to bet that about half the people I know are pissed off, and half the people I know are ready to high five. And again, like I said when I showed with Chris, I don't think that's an accident. My biggest takeaway from the entire 2024 election is the legacy media is done. I think they're done. When you've got these networks that I grew up on, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, ABC, NBC, maybe not Fox, but ABC, NBC, CBS, they all said the same thing. And they were all wrong. And I could say that about the election. I could say that about COVID. I could say that about lockdowns. I could say that about the border. I could say that about masks. I could say that about the vaccinations. I could say that about a lot of things that the mainstream media was wrong on. And the cool thing is, in a space like this, or a space like, a space like X, where people can go on and say what they want to say, you can talk about misinformation, you can talk about this, you can talk about that. The bottom line is, the bullshit's going to be found out. And the truth is going to come out. And you can label people Nazis, and you can label people as misinformed and conspiracy theorists. You can label people all you want. You can sit there and you point fingers all you want. The people I listen to are the people that have the good batting average. And the people that have a good batting average, they look at 1 + 1 = 2, not anything else. And you can sit there and you can talk all day long into a camera and a microphone about how somebody is something. And then with your eyes and your ears and your common sense, you can realize that that's not true. The people aren't buying it anymore. And I think for the people, that's a good thing. And for the people that sit in front of a camera and a microphone and, quite frankly, do as you're fucking told. You're going to do as you're told? Then you deserve what you get. And I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I didn't. I also didn't vote for Kamala Harris. I didn't. But I understand why people did and why they didn't. I completely get it. So when it comes down to this election, people have asked for the bull to be back in the China shop. Now, you can say what you want about that, but my takeaway is if the China shop is on fire in a dumpster in the middle of a hurricane, maybe we need a bull in there. I don't know. But again, to be completely clear, like I said when I was on the show here with Chris last time, I don't give a damn who you vote for, who you didn't vote for. I don't care what color you dye your hair. I don't care how you decorate your body. I don't care who you lay down with at night. I don't care what you put into your body. I care about how you behave. And if you behave like a shithead, then I know who you are. And this notion of I'm going to combat hate with more hate, and the notion of immediately when you're in the middle of a popularity contest to immediately take half of the people that are going to vote for you and say you guys suck, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Never did. And the last thing is, look, my entire life, I absolutely lean towards a certain Democratic or certain party, which was the Democratic Party. I certainly leaned toward that way. It made sense. I wanted people to be taken care of. Of course, I wanted free speech. I wanted peace. But now those things don't seem to be a part of that party anymore, or at least not on the forefront. So you can count me as one of those people that's disenfranchised. I'm confused, angry, maybe even pissed off. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sit there and throw a rock at somebody. I don't give a damn. You throw a rock at me, you got a problem. We'll figure that out. You show up at my front door with a problem, we can figure it out. Great news. I know how to fight. But the idea of claiming to be one thing and then behaving a certain way, again, people are seeing through it. And if you talk about being acceptance and being joyful and being full of love and then turning around and saying somebody that thinks a different way, well, fuck you, then at best, you're disingenuous. And I'll tell you right now, I will tell you right now, that if I every single day got onto this camera and talked about my upstairs neighbor and talked about him as a this or this or this, and was serious about it, making serious allegations, and then the next day you saw a picture of him sitting next to me with a smile on her face, what does that make me? So, for everybody out there that's excited, great. Congratulations, you guys won. For everybody that out there that's pissed off, my feedback, if you're open to it, would be a little more introspective and a little less pointing fingers and calling people names. That would just be my feedback on that. But in the end, I hope that the bull in the china shop is the right move. I hope that the global problems that we're having seem to go away. Because in the end, the one thing that I measure things on that a lot of people seem to forget about, especially in the social media space, is right now, where's the doomsday clock? What's the doomsday clock? Look it up. If you don't know what it is, it's not just a little bit piece that from one of my favorite graphic novels, one of the greatest of all time, Watchmen, which that is true. The doomsday clock, there are people out there that are way smarter than me. And I'm pretty smart. There are people out there that are way smarter than me. They figure out how much time we have before nuclear annihilation. And right now, the doomsday clock is 90 seconds to midnight, which is the closest to midnight it's ever been. And this has been implemented since the 60s. Statistics don't tell the entire story, but they also don't lie. So if we're going to be that close to something like that, which the reason why we don't talk about it very much is because it's the one big thing that terrifies the fuck out of all of us, as it should. I know how to fight. What am I going to do against a nuclear bomb? What? Nothing. So we don't talk about it. So if the bull in the china shop is either going to get it to zero, which I don't think so, or is going to get us away from that midnight, then I'm game for it. So when it comes to that election, again, congratulations for those of you out there that are upset. Let's do what we can to make sure that none of us end up in as ash, and let's move some. You may not think so, and this goes for both sides. I hate to say both sides, but this goes to both sides. Let's remove the petty bullshit. There's bigger things at stake here. I don't have kids. I don't have grandkids. I don't think I ever will. But for those who do, I think that you guys want to have them have a little bit of a future. So, when it comes to Donald Trump, that's going to bring me to my really where I want to get at for here tonight. Donald Trump. Here's what the thing. You can say what you want about Donald Trump. One thing that Donald Trump and I have in common is I'm willing to bet that if you round up 100 people that knew me growing up, you're going to have 50 people that are going to tell you that I'm amazing and 50 people tell you that I'm a piece of shit. That's okay. I don't mind that because I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And a lot of times the people that say that I'm a piece of shit, they say that not because they really feel that, because they little shame. In my opinion, the most powerful human emotion that there is shame. Because when somebody's doing something, not that you can't do, but something that you won't do, that's going to bring out the real person in you. When I see Jordan or LeBron go from the foul line, I don't feel shame because my body can't do that. But when I see a 60-year-old man with an 8-pack, I got some work to do. So if there's people out there going to talk shit about what I do, that's fine. Say whatever you want about me. Step out into my hallway over here and take a look at the piece I'm working on right now called synesthesia. And tell me that that sucks. And I'll call you a liar. I know I have that. Donald Trump, for whatever you say about him and his personality, is he rude? Absolutely. Is he a bully? Yeah. Is he brass? Yeah. Is he an asshole? Sure. Does he get results? That's the thing that pisses people off more than anything. Same thing about me. You can say what you want about me, and a lot of that is true. I'm a pain in the ass. I know it. I know it. I'm very, very opinionated. I'm very driven on things I want to do. But get out of my way or hop on the train, like we heard earlier, one or the other. But the bottom line is, you can say what you want about me, take a look in the hallway at my Peace Dragon, and tell me that it sucks. Do it. You can't. Or you're being disingenuous. So, my guest tonight is somebody that reminds me of that more than anything. Growing up in our little town in Ohio, here in Wellington, here in Ohio, there were people that had reputations for having an attitude, being full of themselves, being cocky, being the bull in the china shop, being somebody that, wow, they don't think that their shit stinks. Yeah, I know what that's like. But when you put the results out there, it's very simple. Number one, I've said this on the show here a couple of times, and it completely exemplifies this person right here. Number one, can you keep up with me? If the answer is no, then shut your mouth. Can you keep up with me? Yes. Oh, okay. Number two, can you do and accomplish what I do and what I've done? If the answer is no, time to shut the mouth again. Here's the great news. If the answer is yes on both of those things, great, have a seat. We could probably do something amazing. But when you walk around with, it's something that gets thrown out very casually all the time is the word swagger, especially in my guest's chosen sport. Swagger is something that you have because of what you've earned and what you've done. You can hang a participation trophy on the wall all day long. It doesn't need a damn thing until you've gone out there and you've earned it. And my guest here tonight, he was a couple years ahead of me in school, and was the guy that I would say probably before me. There may be a couple of guys in the school too, but if anybody would say that guy is a fill in the blank, you're going to either get hero or the opposite. But play ball with him. See what that's like. because I can say that in the little bit that I played ball with him, not only did we become conference co-champs, we found ourselves going to the playoffs when we sure as hell should not have. Because in the greatest football game I ever played in, which was, I only played a couple plays in it, was when we were at home and we were 6-3, we had to take on the unbeaten 9-0 Firelands Falcons, and we beat them 7-0 at home. And it took them out of the playoffs and launched us into the playoffs. And there was basically like 3 or 4 guys on the team that were, I mean, I'm a little guy. These guys were bigger, they were stronger, they were faster, they were older than me. But more than just going out there and exemplifying how to play on the field, but my guest, he kept going. I know a lot of athletes that, junior high, high school, sometimes even junior high, you always wonder, like, what if? What would happen? And you can get the reputation for having an attitude all you want, but if you're going to put your name out there, and you're not only going to go out there in high school, but you're going to go to the next level. And then when you go to the next level, you don't just go. You don't just play. You don't just win one. You win 2 national championships. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to have somebody who might have as much of an attitude as me. We'll see. Although he is sitting in my studio on the show, the one, the only, the great John Quintana.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were going through that introduction. I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but it's kind of funny as I think back to those days.
Try to get a little closer. Okay, there you go.
As I go back to those days and I think about what was going through my mind in that time, I was actually a scared little kid that had big dreams, and so a lot of times when you're don't really know who you are and what you're doing, all I knew is I wanted to play football at the highest level and was willing to work for it, but was very insecure about who I was, and sometimes you cover that up with a big ego. And there was people that got to know me, Brownie, Jason was somebody who got to know me really well, and Troy Brewer, and they were my 2 closest friends because I think they saw through the BS that I put out there and got to know the real me. And those are 2 guys that I really appreciate so much, that were always encouraging, always helping me along, and just we're always there. We're fans, but pushed me. So
it's refreshing to hear you say about being insecure. We all were. A lot of that comes from most of that comes from home, as far as what we're secure in what we can do and how we can perform in things. But we all overcompensate, especially at that age. 15 through 18, we're basically a special needs kid at that point. Our brain isn't even developed yet, even though our bodies are. Or obviously, some big. When I was in 8th grade, I was a lineman. How about that? But I was 130 pounds on the wrestling team, and then my senior year was 130 pounds. So, although I cut a lot of weight, it's some people's bodies just are different. But it is refreshing to hear you say that, because I was the same way. I overcompensated with insecurities and damage and things like that by just acting out and doing some crazy things. But in a way, that insecurity though, as you said, you wanted to play on the highest level. That drove you. That had to drive you, because look, in a school like Wellington, which it's not Ignatius, it's not St. Ed's, it's not a school that's known for pumping people out to the Division I college level or around there. If you're going to walk around and you're going to be serious on the field and you're going to give people shit for being out of line or being off, but you were a guy who was vocal about, hey, this is how we do it, this is not how we do it, and that rubbed some people the wrong way. But the reason why you did that is because you were focused on where you wanted to go. Again, all it did was take you to 2 national championships. And the and I tell you what, I sat. It was interesting because when we talked about having you coming on the show here, I got to sit back and I rewatched the entire championship game from '93, and the interesting story of that, like, as you were sharing with me, is the fact that you guys got up to a real quick lead in that, but it was the rubber match because you were there and you got to win. Was that your freshman year?
So our freshman year, we were the only team that went undefeated, untied in Division I football. We had a perfect 11-0 season,
Right.
Went into the playoffs, and we lost the first round playoff game at home against Central Florida, and that really stung. You know, we had some big expectations after running the table like that, but it was sometimes, you need that.
And were you a redshirt freshman or a true freshman?
No, I was a true freshman.
What was that like going from, the little school in Wellington to Youngstown? And again, going from a team that we had success, but to go from, it's a backwoods type program that we had in Wellington to go to that. What was that like? What was the biggest difference?
I remember a story with a buddy of mine that's now passed away, but his name is Alfred Hill, and we're standing in front of our, at our home crowd, and I'm looking up in the stands, and there's 14,000 people, and the place is just packed out, and I'm just sitting here, I'm hyped. I'm like, man, isn't this great, Alfred? Well, Alfred went to Canton McKinley.
Oh, wow.
And he's just like, dude, I played in front of more people in high school, and he just deflated me like that, But it was so surreal to me to be there. But it was, it was the first game that most of the freshmen were dressed. They could dress. I don't know what they dressed at home then. It was like 65 or 70 people, and I was dressed, and we were blowing out Bloomsburg in our first college game, and I could see the coaches in the second half looking down at me. And I'm just like, what's going on, And finally, my position coach comes down to me, says, you want to play? And I said, well, that's what you brought me here for, right? It's like, heck yeah, I want to play.
Wow.
And they said, go on in. And then it was from that point on, I had made second team at inside linebacker. And then they had put me on all the special teams from that point on. And
yeah, because you played linebacker in high school.
Played
and fullback.
I played defensive end in Wellington.
That's right. That's right. Defensive end. It
was kind of like an outside linebacker, but we didn't drop.
Gotcha.
So it was always just run responsibility and pass rush. But to be able to get out there and just kind of play, and it was like, there were 6 of us freshmen that traveled and played, including one of my buddies that played for 14 years in the NFL.
6 out of how many freshmen went out for the team?
Oh, geez. I think we had probably 30 freshmen that started when we all got out there.
So 6 out of 30. I mean, at the time, I know you're so focused on, I just want to get in. You don't have time to sit back and reflect on that. But now that you look back on that, 6, you're one of the 20%. Think about that.
My thought process at the time was that I wanted to play linebacker, through the whole recruiting process. I remember when Gary Moeller from Michigan came to the high school. Mm-hmm. And they got me out of class, and I remember Lisa Warner was a huge Michigan fan, and she's bouncing off the walls. Oh my God, Michigan's here to see, and it's just like that's where I was. I thought I was going to play linebacker at Michigan, and then they quit calling about Christmas time. Youngstown State held on, and they talked to me, but also it turned out it was really interesting. I looking back at now 53 years old, looking back on the years about how God was moving pieces in my life. So as we were coming down the recruiting trail, I didn't have any offers. We were coming down, getting close to within a couple weeks of signing day. And Jim Tressel called me, and he said, hey, just kind of he had come to my house with the guy that was recruiting me. We had dinner at the house. My dad cooked for him, and had a great evening getting to know him and getting to know those guys. And he had called me kind of the week before. He said, look, he says, I got one guy in front of you. I don't think I'm going to get him. I think I'm going to lose him to Pittsburgh. So I don't have a scholarship for you yet. And he said, I'll call you in a week. And, one thing about Jim Tressel, if he says he's going to do something, he does it. And
you're not the first person I've heard say that.
Yeah. And so he called me a week later, and he said, I didn't get the guy. He went to Pittsburgh like I thought. I've got a scholarship. Would you like to play at Youngstown State? And I said, absolutely. I jumped on it. It was the only scholarship offer I ever got, and it happened to be for him.
So knowing that and getting into that, I mean, like I said, I mean, going into playing football for Wellington, we played in front of 800 people, 1,000 people maybe, I don't know, back in the day. So yeah, there are some high schools in the area. I went to a Midland Lee football game in Midland, Texas in 1999 when they were nationally ranked. And I kid you not, there were 30,000 people there.
No doubt.
It was Midland and all of Odessa. Like the joke was, when that's where the Friday Night Lights movie and series was based out of. They would joke about it. On Friday night, if you're out of town, turn the lights off. They did the last one out of town because we're going to watch a football game. It's practically a religion there. It is phenomenal. So you didn't have that in high school. So to go from that to not only that big stage, playing in that first national championship game, when the first time you come out of that tunnel, are you numb or what's that feel like?
You know what? It's funny you say that because when we went, well, first of all, I mean, Texas, it's first, I mean, I remember when we would travel, we played games at Stephen F. Austin and Southwest Texas State, which is now Texas State, the Bobcats. And we traveled down there and we're in a hotel Friday night watching, we'd flip on and watch the high school sports. I'm seeing dudes at the high school level. I'm like, I don't want to mess with them at Youngstown State, So
wow.
Saw some incredible, just incredible play. I mean, Texas football is unreal. Not that Ohio's. Florida's incredible.
Yeah,
California, Pennsylvania.
High school Florida and Texas. I went to high school games in Florida, Texas, California, and Utah. And it's different in Texas and Florida. Of course, Ohio's on there and Pennsylvania too.
But at that time in my senior season was the '89 season, and coming through the '80, we had there was one or two Phalens that went to Michigan State, and Dan Gossman went to Toledo,
right.
and
yeah.
So we had some guys that had gone and played D1 football.
Was Dan the tight end as well?
He was.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And so that part wasn't right, but we had great support for high school football. I mean, it was kind of like the town shut down for high school ball. And
we did.
You said 800. I'm thinking, I was telling guys that school's 20. We had 2,500 people in the stands, and I think
I don't know.
That's if you're counting the kids playing in the out in the practice field too.
I mean, make no mistake. I want to be clear out there. The stands were packed. It wasn't like we had stands for 5,000 people and 800 people were there. It wasn't. I mean, we had stands for 1,000 people. Then you would have 1,200 people that would be there. That's true. So I mean, it's hard for me because thinking back, like even the Wellington gym, their capacity there is like 1,000 people. Which if you think about that, it's like okay, that's. So we probably were closer to 1,500 to 2,000 people that were maybe there. I don't know.
Either way.
Well, now they have the stands on the other side.
Right.
So
well, and what the fullbackers have done, and the alumni, and the people that are contributing to that it's such an amazing event and show that they put on Friday nights now. It's really.
I haven't been to a game, although they've hosted a couple playoff games there. So that's part of the reason. From what I understand, in Wellington, that was the big motivation for putting the stands over there because the field itself, they always kept very in good condition. The field itself was always one of the best fields we ever played on. At least you kept playing after I did.
Well, and we weren't allowed on it.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't practice on it.
We weren't allowed. It was
No, the track team didn't do anything on it really.
Right.
I mean, that's true. They kept it in good condition. That's true.
No doubt.
And it was, and they put the stands over on the other side, so they've had a couple playoff games there. So,
yeah.
Well, so playing in the first championship game, and then losing the second one.
So. Yeah, you asked that question what it was like walking out of the tunnel out there. And, it was really interesting because, they have a whole week of festivities. We get out there on like a Tuesday or Wednesday and we've got, we're having major practice out there. We're still preparing for the game. They'd have banquets and stuff. And I just remember the first year we were there, we show up and we're just like looking around like, where am I? What's going on? And Marshall comes in and they're all just their business. They're not straight ahead. They're just focused and we're just happy to be there. We have no idea really what's going on. And, we know obviously the game's important. We got a lot on the line.
Were they favored over you?
Oh, yeah.
I thought so, yeah.
And so, well, and the whole thing about getting to that game. Now we came out, backing up in the season, we came out highly rated. We were like preseason ranked number 1 or 2 in the country, and we had somehow messed around and lost 3 games. And we show up at Georgia Southern. They were the defending national champions playing on their home field.
Wow.
And we have to beat them. If we lose one more game, we're done. I mean, we're not making the playoffs. If you could probably lose 3 and make the 16-team field at the time. And so,
but 4,
four, you're not gonna be talked about. Yeah. So we had to rally and beat them on their home field. And Tressel was always about just different motivating angles, just different things. And so the national championship game was on that field that year.
Wow.
And so the big motivational draw is like, guys, we got to go through this team. And when we do what we're supposed to do, and when we win, when we deserve the victory, we're going to take some Eagle Creek water back to Youngstown.
Nice.
We're going to mix it with Mahoning River water. And the whole focus for the rest of the year was making sure we got back to Statesboro to put that water back in Eagle Creek. And so,
wow.
And so we rattled off 7 straight, including beating Georgia Southern on their field, 7 straight wins, ran the table in the playoffs to be able to play in the national championship game. And that's, Marshall shows up. We didn't know anything about Marshall. It's as players, they were in a different conference.
Well, their story is a bit of a tragic one, obviously, but
right
there. But at the time, you weren't aware of who they were as far as the powerhouse that they were supposed to be,
or what they became, even with Randy Moss and all the guys afterwards.
No kidding. That's right. Yeah.
So, but here we are. We're just kind of happy-go-lucky. I mean, we're focused on getting the job done, and in the course, so we come out the game, and it's beautiful day down there in Georgia, and for December especially when we're practicing in snow up in Youngstown. But to go out there and to play that team, we were down 17-6 going into the fourth quarter.
That's right. Yeah.
And we rallied off 3 straight touchdowns, end up winning 25-17, and win our first national championship. Now that year, I had just moved to tight end.
But the transition from linebacker to tight end, from defense to offense, was that tough for you?
Oh my, yeah, it was. So
I know you played both ways in high school, but I mean,
I did. But when you play fullback, you're making a living taking a snap and going and slamming into somebody.
It's true.
Well,
that's where you big dudes can do the stuff that us little dudes can't do.
So
you put me in a strong safety, maybe, but that was the reason why I stopped playing football, is because you put me in a strong safety, I'm still might have to tackle some big bastard like you. And what am I going to do? You know what I mean? That's like Shaq says, that's when physics take over. And what am I going to do?
Well, you say that, but I was only 195 pounds in high school. It's
but I was 130. Come on, 60 pounds. That's half my weight. Come on,
right?
And you're bigger and you're older and like, look, I mean, I love football. I love everything about it, but that's why I got really 100% into combat sports, because if I go on the mat or the ring or the cage, you're going to be the same weight as me, son.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
right.
Okay, like Scott said, like he put it best when he said, we're the same size. Who gives a shit? Like, yeah, you know what? You're right. At that point, you're right. But in football, I might be blocking somebody smaller than me and then turn around and then somebody your size or bigger is going to put me into the first row. And
it's all relative who you're playing against, too.
True.
I mean, my junior year, we're playing Elyria West against Steve Tovar.
That's right.
And in our wishbone offense, me playing fullback, it was his assignment was to take me out of the offense. And it literally, Pat Mitchell calls, the play looked best in their alignment, every play toward him. And literally for 48 minutes, just getting
he was something else.
Oh, he was a man among men. I mean,
he played
6'4.5", 245, and ran
for the Bengals.
He played. Yeah, he was an All-American Ohio State and played 6 or 7 years for the Bengals. Mm-hmm. But he was
back at Elyria West, which doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And but it was one thing, when you play against different people, like they might blow you up on a play, and you're like, you get up, you're like, okay, I got you, I'll get you the next one, and you do. Not Steve. not Steve Tovar. It was
No.
just literally running and just getting blasted and picking myself up. I think the back of my uniform was dirtier than the front of that game.
And
it
you
was
were
crazy.
the one that took the brunt of it then.
Yeah, I remember laying down at halftime, take three aspirin, laid back at halftime, and the only thing I remember was Coach Horvath saying, "All right, let's go." I don't remember adjustments. I don't remember anything. Just
Was
back
that
out
a
in the
home
second half.
game or was that away?
That was at Ely
Ely.
Stadium.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it was insane.
Jeez.
So,
That's crazy.
but so after we beat Marshall that year, well, it turns out we go into a whole nother season. We're not even thinking anything about it. We got our rings and we're back after it. Just Tressa's got us focused again and dialed in, and we're getting ready to just doing what we do.
Did you talk about repeating, or was it just this person or this team and then this team and then this team? Because I see him as being pretty robotic with that.
We're always talking about the end goal. The end goal was always national championship.
Okay.
But it's also you got to take care of a week at a time.
Sure.
And staying focused
Well,
on
the fight
what you have
game's
to
the
do.
same thing. Of course, you want the belt, but I got to get through this guy first. So I get it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so we go back the second year now. We've got the same festivities. Marshall runs the table again. It's us, them. And this year they're hosting the game in Marshall at Huntington, West Virginia.
Games they did.
The last two games they
Yeah,
did.
that's right.
And so they're hosting the game down there. Now we show up for the banquet. They're not happy.
When you walk out into to play the team in the stadium for the national championship, it's their home stadium. What the hell? Like, it must, again, I always bring this back to the fight game. It'd be like if somebody from the last guy I fought from Venezuela, I fought in Curacao. If he fought me in Cleveland, and he walked out, it's got to be a whole different energy when you come out there. Is it, or do you not really notice it very much?
Well, I think it's how you prepare. And one thing that Tressel was a master at was having us mentally prepared to play. Yeah. We knew what we had to do. We always talked about road focus. You're going into a crazy environment, but it's still about taking care of business. It's still about you handling your job, and the quarterback making good decisions, and everybody doing their job.
The analogy always seems to fit with war. Like you're the gunner, you're the this, you're the this, you're the this. We all have one common goal, which we need to defeat this team, this army, if you will.
Well,
I mean, I don't want to sit there and insult anybody that's ever been to war and say it's the same. I don't want to do that. But what I'm saying is the mentality of the coach versus the general. Mm-hmm. It's got to be very similar.
Well, I mean that's one of the things that anybody that knows me knows I'm not a Ryan Day fan. I don't. Ohio State is not a training ground for head coaches, and if you haven't won at a level, it's something and been the head coach successful somewhere else. I don't know how you get that job, but he made a statement like that. I would never say that. The people because our lives aren't on the line.
Right.
We're not.
Again, I don't want to insult
we're not
anybody
quote
when I say
unquote
that.
defending anything other than the stadium, whatever that is. But I mean, that's a whole different level. But it is
as far as the pragmatic mentality of the chess match, if you will. I use the same thing. I always bring things back to fight. It's the same thing, the fight analogy too. Like, okay, if you have an attack that's working really good, I need to stop that. Mm-hmm. And I need to do my attack is going to be able to defeat. It's the same mentality of, okay, this flank versus this. And again, I don't want to sit there and I never served. I will never serve. I mean, show up my front door, that's a little problem. But and I don't want to insult anybody who ever has. No, and again, hats off literally to all of you who have. But I feel like the strategist, that mentality of, for lack of a better term, the art of war. One of my favorite quotes in the art of war is attack complete emptiness with complete fullness, which basically means you zig, I'm going to zag.
Right.
So, and of course, the consequences are much more dire compared to winning a trophy, compared to living or dying. But the mentality, I think the brands are going to be very similar as far as being a head coach, where you have to understand the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Right.
So case in point, if I'm going to sacrifice my fullback against Steve Tovar and we're going to win the game, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I was a casualty of war in that
Well,
game.
but that happens a lot in football.
But no, with in all seriousness, no, it's what goes into that. Even, and I can't relate to the individual sport of fighting, but it sounds like there's a strategy. Hey, you're taking on an opponent that has these strengths, has these weaknesses. And one of the things that Tress was so good about was we knew our opponents, I think, better than they knew themselves by the end of the day, because the coaches had everybody broken down into their strengths and weaknesses. We've seen them on film. We've worked on them all week. We had to, on Friday night, we took tests. We had an offensive test. We had there was a defensive test that the defense had to take, knowing, where you're talking about what numbers were where, what is their strengths and weaknesses, what do we like against those guys, to where we were dialed in, and even a special teams test that we would have to take all of these, get them back to our position coaches, and then if there was something that we didn't understand, they were addressing it either later that night or Saturday morning.
It wasn't just Tressel, it was the whole coaching staff was very focused on, and that's why you guys had the results that you had.
Very dialed in.
Because
Absolutely.
if he was at the head coach and wanted this, and the other coaches didn't care,
Right.
then there would have been chaos.
Well,
So,
and that's why there's some guys that are extremely talented coaches. They can connect to their players as assistants or as a coordinator, but that coordinator and head coach are two majorly different skill sets. Just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach, and we've seen that over and over again.
if you had to name the two most important qualities of a head coach, what would they be?
Getting the buy-in of the players.
Okay.
Getting the respect and the buy-in of the players. Tressel had a way of getting to. I remember my senior year. I was starting, and I had jumped off sides basically, but as a tight end, you can move a little bit, and so I flinched, but kind of kept moving, and then put my hand out. Well, Mark didn't see me moving, and I wasn't set for a second. Snaps the ball. He goes 39 yards for a touchdown. And, here's the official legal motion on the offense. And I hear my replacement, hey, Quint, and here comes Aaron Green out on the field. And I remember running off the field. And Tress had his arms crossed, and he's just looking at me.
Sweater vest?
He didn't wear a sweater vest at YSU. He had a polo with a YSU on the back.
That's right, yeah.
But Tress has his arms just crossed like this. And I'll never forget this. He goes, hey, Quint, what were you thinking? The ball was going the other way. And those words burnt through. He was a guy that he expected you to perform at a certain level, and you didn't want to disappoint him.
He sounds like a guy who doesn't mince words. He doesn't. He cuts it right to the point.
Right. Now the offensive line coach was behind him yelling and screaming, calling me everything but, whatever.
Sure.
But it was that momentary lack of focus that cost us. And so that, when you get back in the huddle, now you're listening, okay, play, snap count, processing everything, coming up to the line. What are they in? Where's my guy? Looking up, okay, who's going to, who everybody's going to block. You get down in your stance, and now you just wait. And you listen through the cadence or...
What's the last thing you think of, like, when you would get into your stance? For me, it was always snap count. I would do the, like you said, I would run, because when I was playing, again, I didn't play anywhere near the level you did. It would be like, okay, that's my guy, or this. Okay, before I get set, or whatever it was always, what was my snap count was the last thing I would always think of. What was it, the last thing you think of?
Yeah, you're focused on the snap count, but you're also... are they shifting around, or do they reset?
Because you're at the level where there's so much more shit going on.
Oh yeah,
right? It's crazy.
They're adjusting. You're talking. You're audible. You're talking to your tackle next to you, and you're listening to the calls of the center and everybody else. You're processing all of this information, and then it gets quiet, and then the quarterback calls a snap count, but you've got to process through that whole thing.
So you win the first championship game. You lose the second championship game to Marshall.
Well, the second.
Take me through that.
So the second one, when we show up at Marshall, and when they were out for blood. I mean, we beat them. They're on their home field. They should win this game, and they got out on us 28-0.
Yeah, 2 games in a row they got out to a fast lead on you guys.
Yeah, I mean it's midway through the third quarter. It's 28-0. Our fans left. I mean, there's literally, it's just us on the field, couple straggling parents, but like the students, they were gone.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, we went back to our strength and running the ball.
Running the ball,
and,
yeah.
And
well, you guys had a great run game. God, you guys were dominant.
We had 2,000-yard rushers.
Yeah,
and
first time ever for that school.
yeah, and the guy at the time that had all the records, Tamron Smith,
Yeah.
he was he could hit the hole.
He wasn't a big guy either. He was 200 pounds.
He
maybe?
wasn't. He was probably, probably around 200, 210 pounds. But he could hit the hole in such a way, and he was just hard to tackle. He wasn't very fast. We joked with Tam. Truss would always run the playback and like, hey, Tam, what's going on here? And he's getting tackled from behind. But the guy scored more touchdowns, and he had all these records. He was an incredible player. And but anyways. In fact, it was the third touchdown we were coming back. He stood up at the goal line. I somehow ended up on the ground. I look up, I see him fighting to get in the end zone, and I just jump and I just come in and I just launch into the back of him. And I just drill him in the ribs, and he landed in the end zone. And he looks up at me, he goes, "Thanks, Quint." I was like, "Hey, dude, you scored. You
got the six.
Let's go." Yeah, we got the six. Hopefully your ribs are okay.
Come on now.
But then, and then we ended up tying the game.
That's right.
And it was such a surreal story for Marshall. Now, their regular kicker gets suspended during the week for violation of their team rules.
That's
and
right.
his twin brother played on the soccer team.
And had never kicked in a game.
Never kicked in a football game. I mean, I don't know if he kicked in high school. I don't know what his history is, but as a soccer
we
player.
even had the one exchange student in high school, who the soccer player. did that.
Andreas? Tobias Sharp, yes.
I remember that kid. He was he was goofy, but he was nice.
Yeah,
And he was a decent kicker.
Yeah.
Decent.
He did a good job for us in high school for sure.
He did.
No, but this guy comes in and his one field goal attempt from 20-some yards to win the national championship with 9 seconds left, drills it, and
that's right.
He's a hero. So they win theirs. And as we're getting dressed and getting out of our stuff and getting on the bus, their fans are they're obviously excited, but they're celebrating, they're blowing their horns, one finger saluting us. You guys suck, and so the whole mantra for the whole senior year from that point. I mean, we just and Truss, even when we got on the bus, they said, "Soak it all in." Just soak it all in.
Smart.
Yeah.
Take it in. Smart.
And so the whole
That's a
year,
smart strategy. Yeah.
Before our senior year, we have down our rings it says HOH, the Horns of Huntington. We had that everywhere because Huntington was going to host the national championship. It's a 3-year bid thing, so they were going to host it year 2. And he said, our whole goal is to come back here, and we want to take them out on their home field our senior year. And so it just happened to be that the bracket's set up right. We did what we needed to do to get back. Marshall did what they needed to do to get back, and here we go, the rubber match. Now, in 92, when I was talking about the second game, when we had that banquet that that we participated in, they were all business. They were mad. They lost the one. They were mad. I mean, they're just focused again, and we're just like, hey, man, we're.
You guys are enjoying the time.
Yeah, we're just taking it all in, having a good time. These guys are all business, and it was so funny. Now going into '93, they won one, we won one, we both won one, and it was a whole different setting. It's like, hey, what's
relaxed.
up? Yeah, we're talking to each other, we're interacting. It was really funny. So.
That's, and again, in combat sports, whether you're wearing pads or you're wearing gloves, it's there's a respect there because we went out and hit each other in the face a few times. I mean, there's a kinship and there's a respect there that you don't get in other sports. I don't think that there are a lot of tennis players that end up buying drinks for each other when they stop playing against each other because you don't get to do that. Right. And if I don't like you and you don't like me and we're the same size, guess what? On Saturday afternoon we can put on a headgear, we can spar, we can figure it out, or we can climb into a cage and figure it out. But when we do, and you do it in front of a crowd, and there's cameras and microphones and everything there, and everything's documented. If I got a problem with you and you knock me out, well then it's over.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's it. It's done. So if we've done that twice, and we're getting ready to do it a third time, yeah, I'm going to be way more relaxed when I see you in the room than the first 2 times that we did this because we've already done it. Right. Now make no mistake, bell to bell, I'm going to come at you like a ball of fury. as I should, and as you would, playing football. But I'm not shocked by that at all, because there's familiar faces there.
Right.
You know what you're going to do. You know how this guy hits. You know how this guy runs. You know what this guy's attitude's like. You know the type of shit this guy's going to say across the line. You know that.
Right.
You've seen him, and you each have a ring. So there is. I'm not surprised to hear that at all, Alan.
Right.
So you go in there, and that game was completely different,
Oh,
because
no
you
doubt.
guys run off to a quick start, very quick start,
Right.
and never look back. So
Yeah.
that experience when you were there, and because again, I rewatched the game just again recently, and that where instead of having to claw your way back, when you're sitting on top of a lead and having to maintain, it's like they always say, the prevent defense. If there's one thing that pisses me off when I watch NFL is I see the prevent defense, because I know at least 3 points are going on the board. At least 3 points are going to go on the board in the next minute. That's what's going to happen, because when you got 6 guys off the line, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get 30 yards on every play. So, when what is that like? What's the mentality of, because I've won matches and fights, and I've lost matches and fights, and there's been some that I've been way ahead the whole time. There's some that I've had to come back from behind, and I know what it's like on an individual basis, and I know what it's like on playing a little bit of football, but on that level, when you jump off to the lead, a good analogy that I'll use is when I was coaching at Elyria Catholic, and I had a kid who was a senior, and we were at the district tournament, and we were in the blood round, where if you win, you go to state. If you lose, season's over.
Right.
Which, if you're not even a high school wrestling fan, go watch the district tournament. Go watch the blood round. You will see agony and ecstasy at the same time. And this kid had been in this match. This was his 3rd time out of 4 years in his last match. And in the way that those consolation matches go, instead of it being a 2 minute, 2 minute, 2 minute match, it's 1 minute, 2 minute, 2 minute. And in the first period, in that 1 minute, he threw the kid, put him on his back. And I sat there and I'm like, we're up 5-0. Holy shit, we're going to win. The only way we should have lost that match is if he would have done something completely stupid. We ended up winning 9-3. But when you're up 5-0 and you're already a third of the way through this match, in a match where you can be penalized for stalling and not engaging and stuff, I'm like, he could literally almost back out of this match and win now. My feeling as a coach switched from complete anxiety to almost like protection. Meaning, okay, whatever you do, don't do something dumb.
Right.
Whatever you do, don't do that. And this is when, as a wrestling coach or as a combat one-on-one coach, I've had athletes out there in a position like that, and then they do something stupid. If I have a guy or a gal or a wrestler who's really good at hitting leg attacks, and I'm winning, and all of a sudden they have a lead and they decide they're going to do a throw, and next thing you know, they get put on their back and get pinned. That type of stuff, drives me crazy as a coach. And again, I've been in those positions as an athlete. So, as a player, what was the mentality of going from holy shit, we got to scratch and fight and claw to get back into this, to all of a sudden you guys were up 10-0 real quick? What was the mentality? And then you guys went into the halftime up. I don't think they scored by halftime, or did they? Maybe
I don't think. I think it was still 14.
So it was the
nothing or
complete
something.
opposite of when you guys were down 28-0 at halftime the year before, and now you're up 14-0 at halftime. What was the whole mentality there?
Well,
The shift?
again, it's having played for a Hall of Fame coach, it's about maintaining. It's about maintaining your focus, not letting up, continuing to hit.
Keep the foot on the neck, if you will.
Continuing to keep the foot on the gas.
Yeah.
And you can't relax. You can't relax against a team that good.
Right.
Because especially on their home field, we knew we couldn't relax, and we had to stay after it. But yeah,
Well, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed rewatching. I did watch the game when I watched it when you played in it. And I hadn't watched the entire game since until you agreed to come on the show. So I made something for you. I watched the game.
No.
And I want you to go ahead and pull that up right now. And you go ahead and take the headphones off if you want. So go ahead and let it play all the way through, and then I'll put it up here so people can watch it.
It is a big offensive line led by Drew Gerber, a first-team AP All-American. And as Dan Jiggets mentioned, 2 1,000-yard rushers in the backfield. Don Whistler is the leading receiver. 15-0 Youngstown State in the Division I AA National Championship game. Run yard, wide open, the tight end, John Quintana. He has a first down in Marshall territory at the 37-yard line. Quintana, an outstanding student, and that isn't giving him enough credit. 3.93 is his grade point average in marketing. He is the only person ever from Youngstown State to be nominated for a Rhodes Scholarship. We talk about Quintana's grade point average, Dan, 3.93. He told the coaches he wanted to get at least 1B because he didn't want to graduate with a 4.0 grade point average and have potential employers think that he was a little bit abnormal.
He was a nerd.
That's right.
Not a bad way.
Threw in 1B to make it 3.93 as he heads to graduation.
Oh my God.
There you go.
That's awesome. Thank you. You know, it's so funny. It's
cheers to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, again, here's the thing. When I watched that, and the reason why I had fun making that is because I had no idea about the Rhodes Scholar. And for as long as I've known you, as far back as we go, and even though we're linked up on social media, that's never been anything that you've ever brought up. And I know so many people that do so little and want to talk so much about it. And I was beyond impressed knowing that because, again, I had the honor to be able to play alongside you in football for a little bit, nowhere near the level that you did. But to know that you accomplished what you did there, 2 national championships, and I haven't looked up to see if you were the only one still, but you were the first, and at that time, the only Rhodes Scholar from Youngstown State. And so I'm not going to salute you for your national championships. I'm going to salute you for what you did in addition to your national championships.
Thank you.
Well, I'm proud of you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Salute.
Salute.
Well, the funny thing about that story that they talk about was anytime that I was doing something questionable, like I could be straight-laced, 90% of the time or 70% of the time. And if I'm doing something that's like just off, Tressel's always standing. You'd be hanging out with the guys and F-bomb or something like this, and Tressel would turn around and say, "Nice," and it's just like I didn't see him standing there.
It almost felt like you were disappointing him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so we're on the plane, and I'm sitting with my roommate traveling. We were flying down to Huntington, and I'd gotten a B after my second year, and I said, I told Andy, I said, we're just sitting there talking, I have no idea what he's listening to us. And I told Andy, I said, I'm kind of glad I got a B. It's just like I don't know, I don't want to be people to think I'm a freak or something like that when I'm advertising in business. That you can at least relate to people. And so Tressel tells that story to this guy, and then on national television, he lays that out about he's glad for potential employers, and I caught so much crap for that.
Tressel told that story.
Yeah, Tressel told him that in the interviews as they're talking about their players, so that they have something to talk about. But and then
that was a really nice shout out that they gave you for that. And again,
it was funny.
I mean, look, how. The fact that Tressel delivered that message is even better, but how it doesn't really matter. What matters is look, it's just a good example of, and I don't want to go down too deep a dive here, but our country is so focused on the pizzazz, which I get, I understand. Mm-hmm. You got the jewelry, you got the gold, you got the belt, you got the bling. Yeah. You got 2 national championships rings sitting right here in front of me, which is. Not only is it cool, it's intimidating, but it's the same thing. Again, when I'm coaching a wrestler or a fighter or something, everybody wants to be at the top of the podium, but they don't understand the thousands of hours
correct
of doing shit you don't want to do,
right,
and having somebody that you probably don't really like yelling at you to get you to do it, and although that's not always the best way to deliver a message, it is effective.
Oh, no doubt.
And whether you're putting on cleats or putting on putting on gloves, it teaches something that at the time we didn't realize what we were learning, which is, I say this over and over again, I know what my secret weapon is, because I know in the clutch I can count on me.
Right.
Why do I know that? Years of being physically and figuratively and sometimes literally whipped into it. Again, that's not always the best way to deliver a message, but it is effective, and it teaches, among anything else, it teaches delayed gratification. Because what you're going to do today, you're going to bust your ass and do this, it's going to pay down the line 18 months from now. Now, instilling that message into a teenager is difficult.
Right.
But as a coach now, it's John Sedlick put it best when he said, when I have an athlete that will do exactly what I say, I feel like I'm playing a video game. Now, do I win every game? No. But I've been playing this game long enough that I'm going to win a lot more than I'm going to lose.
Right.
And it's it's fun. Frustrating though is when somebody that has all the ability in the world and they don't care.
Well, and you see that a ton, not only I'm sure in the wrestling, in life in general. There's
All
people
over,
that you just
everywhere.
sit there and just
Yeah.
I meet people that are so much bigger and stronger. So did you play? No. And it's like, why not? I remember when I worked for Riddell, there was a kid in Fairborn High School that was 6'5", freshman, 6'5" or 6'6", 330 pounds, and we had to special fit him for a helmet when I worked for Riddell.
See, I can't imagine that.
And the kid did not care. He would rather be sitting on the couch watching TV than being out about it. And I tried talking to him. I'm like, do you realize if you applied yourself,
No,
if you would just apply yourself and work and with what God's given you, you could retire your family with the signing of your first contract,
Right.
And just pocket that. And
the people immediately
Change your
around you
family.
will never have to work.
but I think sometimes it's about people just being selfish too. That they just don't have a vision.
That's part of it. However, my feeling always goes back to what's going on at home. Because if I've got a kid in front of me for 2 to 3 or even 4 hours a day, that's 20 to 22 hours that this person's not going to be in front of me. And if this kid's going home to chaos, and I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, chaos at home, it can take everything that a coach and a trainer and an athlete, everything that we work for, everything that we sacrifice, it can take it all and flush it all away.
Right.
All of it. All of it. And if I've got a kid who is busting their butt to learn and to progress and do this and do that, and they're going home and catching a backhand because they won't go get a parent a beer, I know that's oddly specific.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do for that as a coach? So when I see kids like that, that have, I mean, again, to quote Rudy, I'm 5'0" 100 nothing. And when I get around somebody that's 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 330 pounds, and is built like Hogan and hasn't lifted a weight in his life, I'm like, you're special. Your body can do things my body can't do. Mm-hmm. But if the motivation isn't there, what can you do? Now, I've said it a million times. I personally I'll take attitude more than anything. Number 2 is work ethic. Number 3 is talent. And number 4 is notoriety, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, no doubt. And when you look back on the roster that we had at Youngstown State.
You guys had some killers on that team.
Well, we only had one guy that made it to the NFL, and he was a kicker. So
That's right.
out of all of the players, Jeff Wilkins.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, Jeff Wilkins. Nobody else off that roster made it in the league.
Even the running back? What's his name?
Tamron or
Tamron. Yeah, he didn't make it.
He was. I think he went to somebody's camp for a little bit, but he didn't make the final roster.
Huh.
And it might have been. I can't remember what team it was, but no, we had a couple guys get hurt in camp. We had a couple, but the only one that made it was a kicker. And so what that tells you got to find guys that have heart and that want to win it. There's plenty of guys out there that have tools. But
Well, that's the
deep down
difference
inside-
between playing as a unit and having a Steve Tovar versus everybody else.
Well, that's where I think the coaching is. Coaching is so underrated. Where everybody focuses on the talent on the field,
Well, sure.
what they're going to have. That's what it's driving me crazy about.
Well, they're the ones that are selling the jersey.
Well,
unfortunately, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's a whole nother.
They're the ones that are selling the
conversation.
jersey. They're the ones that are going to be in the video game. They're the ones that are going to be, on the fill in the blank. But
Right.
it's and this is something that when it comes to especially professional sports, this is a conversation I've had with amateur athletes and amateur fighters and even pro fighters sometimes too, where I'm like, look, no matter how good you are, the last fighter you want to be is the fighter that just went out and performed, and no matter how good you are, next fight they forgot about you. You do that, you're not going to have a career. A good example for that in the UFC is a guy named Colby Covington, who's fighting in a couple weeks. Colby Covington was a guy who was a welterweight, who was fledgling. He was, he had won like 3 fights in a row, but his style, although it's effective, it's boring. He kind of keeps pressure on you. He just keeps touching you. He doesn't really hurt you. Touches you a little bit, throws some kicks. He's a good wrestler. His best weapon is his pace. He keeps a great pace, but he's not very exciting. So the UFC was going to cut him. And the next thing you know, next week you see him wearing a MAGA hat, reading a Donald Trump book, and creating. I think, has really become a Donald Trump fan, but I think he initially did it completely as a troll to create a name for himself where he would go out and he would try to do,
Create controversy.
Well, Donald Trump, the problem with Donald Trump is like when he went on Rogan's show, even Rogan said, you say some wild shit.
Yeah.
He does. He says some stuff that he flies off the cuff when he says things. And guess what? There's some freedom in that, but there's also a little pushback you're going to get from that too. And if you're going to behave like that as a fighter, okay, you're already a cage fighter, but you better win. Right. And then Colby started doing that, and then he started winning. And, you can see, and he started winning, and most importantly, again, Vince McMahon is the greatest promoter of all time because he understood that it doesn't matter whether you love this guy with the belt or you hate this guy with the belt, you're going to spend your money to see this guy either lose the belt or keep the belt. And that's the story right there.
Right.
He understood that. And he understood that, I need to build up these characters and do this and do that. Now, Colby Covington is a guy that fell into that. The ironic thing is when you see Trump go around and talk about the UFC, which he's a big fan of, he doesn't mention Colby. He mentions Khabib because, Khabib is, in my opinion, the best that's ever done it. Now, his style is very boring. He's going to take you down. He's going to beat you up, and he's going to submit you. He's not going to do the highlight jump off the cage, jump spin kick. He doesn't do that type of stuff.
Right.
But he's effective.
Well, it's like watching Mayweather box. It's not exciting. He goes for points and he wins decisions and he just wins.
And Floyd is the greatest defensive fighter of all time.
Right.
When you see Floyd at post-fight interviews, he doesn't look like he's been touched. Now, the interesting thing about that, I talked about Conor at the beginning of this. If you rewatch the Conor-Mayweather fight, the most interesting story of that entire fight is what the Boxing Commission was going to do. They were going to rip off Conor McGregor because I believe he got knocked out in the 8th round out of 12. I think it was 8. Conor should have won at least 4 of those first 7 rounds. At least. You watch that fight and you watch it over. The very first round, this is the example I always give to people. The very first round, Floyd Mayweather threw one punch when there was 10 seconds left in that round. And all three judges gave that round to Floyd. They were going to rip off, they were going to screw Conor McGregor because there was no way they were going to let this MMA guy come in here and win this fight. Now, Floyd ended up finishing him in the fight, which is what saves this whole argument. It's why you don't hear it anymore. But if you go back and look at that fight and look at those scorecards, the reputation of, again, we talk about certain stereotypes that don't have any truth behind it don't stick around. When you talk about how boxing can be shady, well, there's a reason why that stereotype sticks around.
Right.
And I've said it a million times. If I've got two people in a ring or a cage and $1 billion+ are being waged on those two human beings, there's all sorts of shady shit that can go on. From you're going to dive, or you're going to dive, or you're going to vote for, or you're going to vote, especially when you're talking about if there's no finish. This is one thing I'll give Dana White credit when he says, don't leave it to the judges. He's right. Because when you leave it to the judges, shady stuff happens all the time.
Right.
Now, a lot of times it could be legitimate, but a lot of times it's not. And if there's a motivation behind me to pick you over this guy or this guy over you, then I'm going to do that. But if this guy flatlines you, well, we know who the champ is. So it's a goofy, shady business. And when you hear about, the stuff like that, when the biggest story was that Conor was going to get ripped off, but Floyd is a great example of just being the best defensive fighter that's out there for sure. It's a, it's a weird when you got two people sitting there and they're going to go down and they're going to slug it out, and again, all that in professional sports, when there's all that money that's going on, there's so many things that happen that the people don't even know about. By the time that athlete walks out on the field or walks down to the ring or walks down to the cage, who knows what is personally going on with that person. Story I tell athletes all the time. In 2008, I was in Utah and I was training a guy, and it was an amateur fight, and we're getting him ready. It was a series of fights that were called Showdown. They did a real good job with those out west. They ended up actually producing a lot of guys that ended up making it to the UFC and to Bellator. And there was a guy who was backstage, had his hands wrapped. He was fight number 8 out of 12 or something like that. He had his hands wrapped. He was getting ready to hit mitts, and he grabs his phone, and there's a text message from his girlfriend saying that she's breaking up with him, and now she's dating a teammate of the guy he's going to fight. What do you think his state of mind was?
Right.
He was in no condition to go out there and stay calm and relax and perform. He was out there ready to rage, as he should be. But ever since that, I've always had the rule where if you're fighting for me, you give me that phone 24 hours before you get into the ring or the cage.
Yeah.
And if there's somebody that is your significant, whoever they are, they can go through me to get to you. Now, make no mistake, the house is on fire, somebody's in the hospital, you're going to get that message. But if she's pissed off because you didn't return the text message, no. You don't need to know about all that, because I'm worried about the guy that wants to kick your face off.
Right.
So
Right.
It's a, that you talk about, the being focused like that. I've done that one-on-one so many times that when you talk about Tressel and his ability to do that with a team of 40-plus people, and most importantly, delegate that down to his other coaches, that's impressive to me. And again, it gets back into if he was that way and you guys didn't like him and you guys were 5-6 every year and you didn't have the results that you had, then you could have a different attitude about it. But when you produce the results that he did with you, and then like he did at Ohio State, well, clearly he has something that works.
No doubt. Well, and the thing, and we were at Youngstown. It was Akron. Akron was our rival, and literally we were talking about Akron all year long. Every practice we had one period dedicated to talking about Akron.
Wow.
Even though we're getting ready for another game, it's like, okay, we're going to focus on Akron for 5 minutes, talk about something there,
Wow.
just kind of do some looks, and then go back to the opponent that we were going and that focus. But you said something about not leave it up to the judges, and you know, I guess, you know, having the luxury of having been around a guy that's had tremendous results, watching him on the sidelines, being right there, you know, the guy never argued with officials. And that's one of the things that was driving me crazy the other day, watching Ryan Day lose his mind. As a leader, your team is watching you.
Right.
And if you lose your mind and you make it look like the officials are against us,
Right.
your team's going to quit playing.
Right. If
And
you're
so-
at the top and you're chaotic, the rest of the team's going to be chaotic.
The only thing that Tress would ever say to officials that I remember was, "What did you see so I can coach my guys?" He never argued that that didn't happen. He would say, "What did you see so that I can make the corrections on my end?"
Smart.
And if he heard us in the locker room at halftime, or mostly at halftime, of complaining about the officials, he'd say, "Guys, if it comes down to an official's call whether we win or lose a game, you didn't deserve to win it." And that got us focused right back where we needed to be. So
Right.
he knew
Yeah.
how to bring out the best in us. And this is like what you said, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. Take care
There's
of
no
this.
doubt.
Yeah, leave no doubt.
It's, I mean, in a one-on-one competition, when you're out there with somebody the same size, 99 times out of 100, the person who was better prepared is going to win. There are the weird occasions where the referee or the official will make a whatever, or, as we talked about before, human beings can be corrupted. Clearly, human beings can be corrupted. So if you're a judge and you're sitting there, blah, 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 and all of a sudden somebody slides a vanilla envelope to you, you might all of a sudden see the fight a little bit different. Guess what? When I'm watching my wrestlers wrestle, I'm seeing a different match than the opposing coach. Of course I am.
Right.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
So when it gets into that corruption that can complete, I mean, it takes championships away. It takes, and we start talking about high level professional sports, millions of dollars away. It breaks people.
Right.
And in some sports, in particular combat sports, there are not a lot of professional fighters and not a lot of professional football players that have left their job as a vascular surgeon to go do those things.
Right.
There aren't many of those people.
Right.
I'm sure there are a couple of them. I mean, now again, if you have the ability to be an elite engineer or to be an elite surgeon or something, but you're 23 years old and the Detroit Lions come calling and you're gonna sign $40 million. Okay, I'm also 23 years old, and I mean, I always like what Dan Gable at Iowa Wrestling, who was the legendary coach at Iowa, he would say it. He'd flat out every year line up all the freshmen and say, "Welcome to Iowa Wrestling. I'm Dan Gable. I'll be your coach. I only have one thing to say to you. You got your whole life to go to school. You got 5 years to wrestle with me." He would flat out say it, and he's right. If you're going to do almost all sports, but in particular combat sports, when you're young and your body can do it, sure, and there is the possibility of a great payday. So if I had, a young athlete who was looking to become, a classic pianist, or to be a second-round draft pick for the Buccaneers, well, son, you might take a beating for a couple of years, but here's the great news: you can build your own symphony after that. So, in the professional sports world, it's such a massive moneymaker.
Right.
I mean, massive. We talked about Vince McMahon before. You take these athletes that aren't even performing a real sport, and John Cena is going to make $1 million this year off T-shirts, and I don't think he's been in the ring. So it was basically that was my kind of mentality when I was getting into coaching some of the fighters with the Swarm and all that. I was just like, look, if you're an amateur fighter and we have a cool look and a cool logo and a cool team and a cool this and a cool that, then all of a sudden, if you go out and perform and maybe you go out and you win a split decision, and it's controversial, but you got a cool look and a cool logo and a cool this and a cool that behind you, you're going to sell some T-shirts, you're going to make some money.
Right.
Whereas if you go out and flatline somebody and you don't have anything behind you, then you're forgotten on the next fight. But that's really what it boils down to is the ability to market and the ability to have, there's a term that I hear teenagers today talk about that I didn't hear about until I was in my 30s, which is the word, I need a brand. This is my brand.
No doubt.
And it's, I see these parents and stuff with these kids that are teenagers and stuff. They're grooming these kids, getting them ready because, a case in point, being a wrestler, you could be, when we were in school, you could be a state placer and get a full ride scholarship in a D1 school. Not anymore. You're going to have to be a multiple state champ. You're going to have to be a national champ or national qualifier. There are certain tournaments you're going to have to place in. Otherwise, you're just not going to get looked at because there are so many kids who already do. I remember, Jason Hartman famously was, the best wrestler that I knew, and I grew up with him, and he was in my class and stuff. He had like 200 matches before we even got into junior high, which was an anomaly at the time. Now you'll see kids average 300 matches before they even get into junior high. It's to be on that level. The competition has just incredibly. I can imagine, like from what you went through. And again, I don't want to pretend to understand a lot about how the scholarships work in football. Though you shared your story, it is absolutely cutthroat, but also big money for these schools.
Well, and the environment today has changed with all of this extra training that they have working with people that are, they're talking nutrition, they're talking about extra strength training outside of what you're doing in the weight room, different skills as far as like receivers, running pass routes, learning their craft and accelerating the game that much faster. It's amazing to me, going back to Wellington High School and thinking about our offense. It was kind of like, okay, you run this and you run that and he run here. And I just got, I coached when my son was in high school at Homestead High School in Fort Wayne. Our offensive coordinator was talking about stuff that they taught us in college, as far as you line up on this play on the hash mark. He's talking about marks on the field that they're running to. That's stuff we talked in college.
That's the way it was at Midland Lee when I saw them. Well, again, look at the program that they have there.
Right.
It's just like, I don't even know what they're talking about. We were a very small school with a very basic program. Although I liked Coach Horvath. I did. I liked him a lot. I thought he was a good guy. The coach that came after him, I know Coach a lot of people. I know Coach Stahl. I didn't really play for him. I know people that enjoyed him. He didn't rub me the wrong way or anything. I just didn't really want to keep playing anymore. I liked Horvath a lot, but
No doubt.
He's
coaching here in Vermilion.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's coaching here. I saw him last year, and I stopped.
Are you kidding me?
And saw him, yeah.
I didn't know he was even here.
Yeah, he's starting to phase out, but he was working the last few years over here at Vermilion High School.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
No shit.
Hadn't seen him in 30 years and got to hang out with him for a little bit.
How's he doing?
He looks good. Still looks good.
Well, he was always
Still
fit.
looks like he could play.
He was always fit, and he was. He was a no nonsense guy. He was always, I shouldn't say that. He did have some fun, but
he mixed it.
He did, and especially for that school, he did a good job.
He did a great job getting us on track and coached some success there, and we had some good years there. But Stahl did the same thing too. Stahl carried on the tradition as well. He did,
and I don't want to sit here and bag on him. He had a lot of success there. He had some. You talked about. Steve Tovar. I remember watching Ryan Myers.
Oh my God!
And I got to know that. I had the honor of coaching him in wrestling for a couple of years, and I tell the story all the time. There's a couple of positions and a couple of moves that I learned how to do against bigger guys, and I was able to stop him and beat him until he learned how to stop that stuff, and then he was a 215-pound state champ in wrestling, and was, rock solid 215 pounds. He was a beast.
Anybody that makes it through D1, walked down at Akron and played a year for the New York Jets.
He played a few years out in NFL Europe.
He
played, I believe he played for Barcelona.
Yeah.
If I remember right, he played for Barcelona, led the team in tackles, and then came to the Jets for once. I think it was one season or maybe two.
Yeah.
And played special teams for them for a little bit. But the thing that got me about that kid and I've told the story maybe on the show here, but he was a senior, and there was a big storm that came in because wrestling season's always during the winter. And there was a couple of days where there was no school. So where there's no school, you can't force the kids to go into practice, at least not in high school.
Right.
And we came in after 2 days, and all the kids on the school or on the team were heavy because when you're home and you're not working out and you're a teenager, and especially around wintertime, you're going to eat. Except for Ryan. Ryan was lighter. And I asked him, I was like, what the hell did you do? And he casually told the story about how he went into his backyard and dug a 50-foot trench and tied a tractor tire around his waist and ran wind sprints. Yeah, because that's what I'm just going to go do.
Well, I have a statement that I've always heard: winners find a way. Winners always find a way.
You're right. You're exactly right.
Versus, if you're going to continue your training, you're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to find a field to work out on. You're going to find a weight room to get into.
You're exactly right.
Winners always find a way to do it. And Ryan Myers is definitely a winner.
You're exactly right, and he's a real good kid. Matter of fact, I did a with those the Wellington trading cards. I did a picture of Ryan as Thor, which I'll put up here. But I also did a recent one that I'm going to put up here of Ryan, and he has his son Jet with 2 T's who plays ball now too. I did a picture of those two as Batman and Robin.
Oh wow!
Which is a pretty cool story. So I'll put that up here.
That's going to be, and that's such a fun thing to watch your son, play, and that you can pour into them. And
I don't know what that's like, but
it was definitely a lot of fun. My son's now retired from baseball, but he was a baseball kid, and
that's right.
It took him a while before I figured out that a D1 tight end should not be trying to teach him how to hit a baseball. It just doesn't make sense. And so I stepped out of the coaching. It was the dad role. So
you can be good at a couple of things. I can teach you how to throw a left hook and teach you how to drop.
Yeah, but I'm not going to teach anybody else how to.
No, okay, fair enough. All right.
But
well, again, it's that's something that. I can only sit here and try to understand when it comes to, coaching your son or coaching any children, because, again, it's not for me. But, I love coaching kids. I love being able to give them back when I'm done coaching them. Did you find yourself wanting to be harder on him, or would you find yourself wanting to have any? Of course, it's your son, so you're
always.
You're going to feel different about him than the other kids.
So I guess here's what, our experience in sports. Over the years, you always saw the kid that didn't deserve playing time that was playing because dad was the coach.
See, that's why I like wrestling, because I can go out there and you can go out and challenge at the weight class. So when it comes to some team sports, there is politics. That's true.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
But and I think you're only doing a disservice to that kid. It's. We had a kid that we played against one of the other high schools in Fort Wayne that his kid started at cornerback from sophomore year through senior year, and he wouldn't have made our JV team.
Wow.
And just put him out on an island, and we put 70 points up against him one time, and just literally his sophomore year, our team was literally down when he was on our side of the field, telling him, okay, it's coming your way. He's going to run a streak. They're telling him what he's going to do, and our guy's catching the ball over him. It was just terrible. You feel bad for the kid because he's out there. He's put in that position. The dad put him in that position. He had no business being there.
There's a harsh reality when it comes to stuff like that.
Right.
I remember. Now again, growing up here in Ohio, we have some of the best high school wrestling in the world, really, for that age. And I met some kids out in Nevada that were state champs. And I remember thinking, I don't even think you would have been varsity on my team.
A lot of it was a workout. I remember our basketball coach, I can't remember which one it was, but we were conditioning one day, and he decided he was going to come up and let us do conditioning with the wrestling team. I thought I was going to die. I was like, I couldn't catch my breath. I thought I was in shape, but you guys were in shape at a whole different level than I had a whole new respect for wrestlers.
Well, I appreciate that.
From that point.
You have to be. In my opinion, when it comes to combat sports, my strategy, which is the same strategy that I had from the coaches I had growing up, which is, again, if you and I are going to be on a mat, in a ring, or in a cage, and we have to weigh the same, but if I've worked harder than you have, then I have an advantage over you.
Right.
And if we need to go 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the hell it is. And my experience has been, I'll put a picture up here. There was a guy that he played, he was a lineman for North Olmsted, ended up getting drafted by the Detroit Lions. Matt Rotham's his name. And dude, 6'8", 380 pounds. And I'm looking at this guy, and I said to him, I'm like, look, okay, I'm in here, and I was teaching him some boxing and stuff, and I have a picture and a video of me up on a stepper. I'm on a stepper with 3 rings underneath it, so I can stand up. And I say to him, okay, you're 6'8". The odds of you ducking under a punch, you're probably not going to have to do that, but for the drill, you're going to have to do it. And I tell you what, he fell in love with the type of training that I do, because I said to him, like, look, your body can go out there and get set and push around 1,000 pounds for 30 seconds. My body can't do that.
Right.
I will. You can punt me. I will bounce off of you. I will get hurt. Now, to do what I do, you're going to have to push around 300 pounds for 30 minutes. It's a different animal. When you need to go for 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or even just 60 seconds straight. So my experience has been a lot of, although basketball, there is a lot more running, but there's a lot of breaks in that as well, or there can be a lot of breaks, whether it be, possession change or fouls or things like that. It's similar to football. Football is basically, okay, we're going to get set and we're going to run into each other full speed for 30 seconds.
Right.
Which is, people will ask me, hey Scott, what's a good way to help stop injuries from football? My answer is take away the pads.
Especially concussions.
Yeah, it'll stop that.
Especially concussions.
When you've got 2 super athletes that are 6'3", 230, and both run a 4.4, running into each other full speed, again, you put me in the middle of that, you're going to carry me out.
Right.
And I'm not going to walk out of that for sure. But when you have 2 super athletes that do that, and you have those pads on there, it does give you protection. It does. And it gives you a false sense of more protection than what you really have.
Well, and you fast forward now, I'm 53 years old. I'm about to get a new hip. And
yeah, I'm getting ready for that soon too.
And it's some of the guys that I played with have already had knees replaced and shoulders replaced, and it's a real, it's a thing.
But the hip is good though. Everybody I know that's had the hip done, that are all around our age, because I'm a couple years younger than you, everybody I know that has the hip done, they all said that they should have done it 10 years sooner.
Absolutely. Well, at my strength coach, the guy that was our trainer at YSU, he had his done 26 years ago. He's 74 years old now.
Wow. And
he tells me, I said, well, they're telling me that's only good for 15 years. He goes, dude, they have to tell you that. He says, he says, I'm 74, I abuse mine. I said, what do you mean? He says, I still deadlift 500 pounds. He still squats 300 to 400 pounds, Scott.
See, I can't lift that kind of weight.
I don't want to lift that kind of weight. Yeah. It's like I'm done with that. But
that's impressive, though.
It is. It was interesting. I tell you about the respect I had for wrestlers. A funny story in college. I had some guys in my fraternity that were wrestlers. And one guy that was probably about 130, 140 pounds, and I'm at the time I'm playing at 240, 245, benching 540, squatting, benching 450, squatting 540, top of my game.
Oh my God.
And I'm just thinking in my spot. I'm like, they're talking like, dude, you want to keep talking? I was like, dude, I'll bench press you. Get off. Just leave me alone, And I was like, I'd pin you in a second. Guy moves the couch, calls me out. I'm like, oh, here we go. Had me pinned in 30 seconds. I was like, how did you do that? It's just amazing to me what wrestlers and you guys in those individual sports know how to leverage and use your bodies to. It's amazing to me.
Thank you, and you're right. I sat down and had dinner with Kelly Pavlik, and got to know him really well.
Youngstown guy.
Yeah. And I know I did. I took my EC wrestlers out there to practice with him at me gym one night, and Kelly sat there and looked me in the eye. He goes, "Yeah, I know what you wrestlers are up to. I know better. I'm like, okay. And he said the same thing. He's like, dude, you get your arms around my neck. What am I going to do?
Right.
And and when I get into, especially like when I'm teaching women, I'll say, here's the deal. If Brock Lesnar walks in here right now, you as a 60-year-old woman, if you get your arms around his neck the right way and you pull, he's going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Which means he's not going to hurt you. It has nothing to do with how much weight that guy can push.
Or how strong you are.
Right, at all. If you just do that the right way. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was a freshman in college, and I've been wrestling for a few years and stuff. And my buddy comes over to my place one day, and he had the very first UFC VHS tape. And we watched it. And we watched Hoist Gracie choke out everybody. And we're a bunch of wrestlers, but what is that? What is that? Because and the interesting story about that is people don't understand that Hoist Gracie was put into that tournament by the Gracie family because he was the smallest and weakest member of their family. Their champion is a guy named Hickson, who at the end of the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk movie, he's the guy at the end teaching him how to breathe and stuff. Hickson retired at like 465-0 between MMA, full contact, bare knuckle, and submission, grappling, and fighting. And if you see his body, he was an Adonis. They didn't put him in there because they were like, this isn't fair for Hickson to get, so they put Hoist in there as the smallest guy. And it was one of those, we had that same moment as wrestlers, we're like, what is this? Because here was a guy on his back. Mm-hmm. And as a wrestler, if you're on your back, you're losing.
Right.
And all of a sudden he's on his back and he's got guys that are tapping. Like, what the hell's going on here? And figure out how he's doing chokes from here and arm locks from here. It was my eye-opening moment like you had when you come up and train with the wrestlers, because the point is, just when you think you know, there's another level.
There's always somebody better than you are. That's for sure.
In any type, you're exactly right. In any form of combat sport, whether you're putting on a uniform or gloves or whatever, there always has to be somebody in the room that can put their hand on their shoulder and be like, not so fast.
Right. In your opinion, you've done a lot of different things competitively. You've coached and stuff. I mean, to be successful, what percentage do you say is mental versus physical?
I'm going to say it's 50-50. And the reason why is because when you physically push your body as hard as you can't help but get mentally tough. Mm-hmm. And it's just the two are just hand in hand, because I know that at age 51 right now, that if I'm out and I'm at a shopping mart and I see some deranged person with a knife walking around, look at the news, this has happened around Cleveland recently, and they're up to no good, I'm going to do something about it.
Right.
And I know I can. And I also know that right now that you lock me in a cage with most men half my age, most men, I'm walking out and they're not. Mm-hmm. So that makes me very mentally strong. So my opinion is when I know that if I have taken everything out of my body that I can, as hard as that is, I have learned through years of experience that it's going to make me mentally tougher. Now, instilling that into a teenager is the problem, is the challenge, if you will.
Right.
And usually my experience has been when I have a young athlete who I'll take from a certain, say they're on a level 5 is top condition, they're 1.5. When I get them, and I'll turn them into a 3.5, say I've only got a couple months or whatever, you'll see it happen. Mm-hmm. There's a different, like bringing it back, there's a different swagger about that person. However, if I was to label one more important than the other, it would be the mental. Mm-hmm. And the reason I know that if I've worked that hard, I've gotten myself to be that condition. However, when it comes to coaching, I don't give a damn how hurt you are. If you're in a ring or you're in a cage or you're in a fight and I'm there as your coach, Part of the rule that I say to you before we even walk in there is, I decide whether or not you fight. I decide. Now, if you are 38 years old and we've been at this for 13 years and you're defending your title for the 7th time, and this is our 15th fight together, you can tell me some things.
Right.
Until then, you haven't earned that.
Right.
I decide whether or not you fight. And a great example is I saw an interview recently with TJ Dillashaw, who was a former bantamweight UFC champ. And he won a fight a couple of years ago against a guy named Corey Sandhagen. Blew his knee out in the first round. Ended up winning 4 out of 5 rounds. And he sits down after the first round, says, I blew my knee out. And his coach, I think it was Greg Jackson, just basically ignored it. Just ignored what he said and got right back into strategy. Okay, you got to watch his left hand when he's doing this, and got right back into that. And TJ was just like, okay. And like after that, he totally forgot about what he was dealing with. So, like you were saying before, if you're sitting down with me and you tell me your knee's getting blown out and I freak out, there's no way you're going to be able to get out there and fight. There's no way. I need to be calm. Now, make no mistake, there are times where, especially if this is a young fighter and you're 22 years old and you're an amateur and you're trying to become a champ and you're trying to become a pro, you blow your knee out in that first round. Okay, we're gonna go home, because it's not worth it at that point. And getting into that relationship, as far as, again, I am the coach. You hired me as your coach, so you're going to do as I say. But again, if you're 38 years old and we've been at this for 15 years, there's a different relationship there. So
I think there's also a difference between being hurt and being injured. Now, if you're blowing a knee out and it comes down to pain counts, I don't know how those guys do. Like you remember old Jack Ham playing a football game with a broken leg.
Yeah, that's a different.
And it's just like a whole how those guys, their mental approach is unreal to me. But
I don't. And now again, even when I was rewatching your championship game, there was somebody got got hit. I don't remember the specifics of it, but they came off the field, and even the announcer said, "Oh, the word is he just got his bell rung." Today, that would be a completely different, it'd be like...
Well, they've learned so much more about concussions.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm hearing that shit. Wow,
for the record,
30 years.
Well, for the record, I don't remember ever having a concussion. But anyways.
I don't either. How about that? I remember getting one. I remember it was actually when I was training for my last fight. Now, I was I was 43, man. I was training there with some 20-year-olds and bigger guys, and one of them took me down and hit the back of my head real hard. But
I was coaching running backs at Fort Wayne, and I just, I tell you what, there's something about that age group and those 18, 16, 17, 18-year-olds about the strength, and I was like, we're teaching them ball security drills.
Strength, but their bodies are made of rubber.
Oh, I told them, I said, all right, get the ball away from me. And you got 4 or 5 of those monsters pulling at you and stuff, and all of a sudden I start seeing stars, and I'm just like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. They got it now.
That's great.
They can't not hanging with those boys anymore, but it was awesome.
Well, I mean, you're asking for like the mental and the physical. I actually use my fitness as a weapon, because if I've got a 20-something-year-old on the treadmill who has a fight coming up in 7 weeks, and they can't keep up with a 50-something-year-old with a bad hip and a bad this and a bad that. I'm like, you're out of your mind. You think you're kidding me? So I use it as a weapon when it comes to that. And I also use it as a weapon when I get around somebody who's, let's say, over the age of 35, and they start getting into the excuses.
Yeah.
Well, I can't do it because of this or this or this or this or this. And I just show them, hey, guess what? I got heavy too.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I did. And it wasn't because I didn't know what to do. I just got lazy. I get it. I understand. As you're saying before, I would love to be able to sit right over there and do nothing but play video games on this screen all day. I can't. If I do that, then anything that I have and all the project things I'm talking about, they all go away.
Well, we've all got 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
How do you use it? Most people waste theirs.
Yeah.
You know,
Unfortunately,
when
yeah.
you look at the people that are the top producers and what they do, they're constantly sharpening the saws, constantly getting better, constantly learning, constantly working. They're
Constantly
not coming,
asking.
They're not coming home at 5 o'clock,
Right.
not putting it down, but not coming home at 5 o'clock, checking out, turning on the TV, eating dinner, you know, going
Getting
to
programmed.
they're going and running, and what else can they're making the most use out of
Those are the
24
people that
hours.
are working on the weekends. Those are the people that are picking up the extra this, the extra that, helping out with this. You're right. Yeah, there's always I don't have time for other shit. I'm doing this and I'm doing that.
Right.
You're right. It's not a secret that those are the people that are always the most successful too. And it gets back into there will be people out there that will take confidence as attitude or cockiness or whatever. No, I busted my ass,
Yeah.
so I deserve that.
One of my favorite quotes is Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
You're right.
And that's
absolutely true.
constantly driven me. So
Anybody I know that has ever had any real levels of success, they tend to focus on the failures that they've had more than anything. Like when they tell stories about things that they've done and things that they've accomplished, it's and that drives me. I like hearing about that. I like hearing about how this didn't work and that didn't work. And
well, it's not about the failures. It's about overcoming
great
the failure.
Yeah,
It's
agreed.
the struggle success.
Yeah.
It's everybody's got a struggle.
Yeah.
But what did you do to get past it? What did you do to win? And I look at it, as far as my family and that I've got a responsibility to continue to win, to continue to be an example to my son, and to the rest of their family of, it's just because the football field's done doesn't mean you don't continue to work to win and be a difference maker.
Do you think that drives you more than anything now? Is leaving your, like you said, taking care of the family and all that?
No, I think it's internal.
Yeah.
There's two types of motivation. There's external motivation. It's where you got somebody talking in your ear and you can do it and rah rah and that sort of thing. But the people that are truly successful have that inside fire, that inside burn. That when it's time to get up and go to work, you're getting up going to work.
When nobody's
when it's
watching.
time to read.
Yeah.
The things you do when nobody's watching.
Right.
That's 100%. And
Agreed.
What kind of books are you reading when are you reading books to better yourself, or are you watching TV or watching YouTube or scrolling on your phone?
Well, let's be careful about the YouTube here because I go down some deep dives. Now, to be fair,
But are you
7 out of the 10 things I watch on YouTube are somewhat educational. To be clear, probably somewhat.
Well, but are you watching YouTube to learn something to learn skill sets that are getting you better? That's
Usually,
or are
yes.
you just entertaining yourself?
70%. It's 70% productive to not. I'd say that's probably, and by the way, that includes the show. In uploading this on. So I use it as a tool. I use it as a way to learn. I also use it as a way to express.
No doubt.
It's always fun. Like we were talking about the time-lapse videos of my artwork and stuff. That's always fun for me to put those up here.
Those are mesmerizing to me. But see, that's somebody it's an accomplishment for me to have a stick figure design. That's an accomplishment for me. I have zero artistic talent when it comes to that space. So to see somebody that can freehand and do stuff what you do, but that high-speed thing, showing how that comes together. I sit there and I don't lie. When you send those to me, I'm sitting there watching those just in awe. So it's the talent you have is amazing there.
Well, I appreciate that, and you got to see some of the stuff out there.
Oh my
that's
gosh.
it's still in progress. So
Yeah, there's definitely when I get into my dream house and that I'm going to be calling you to help decorate some of it. So
you
for
can
sure,
say when. I got you for sure.
no doubt.
All right. Well, again, I appreciate that. I got something special coming up for you right here. This is a little something that we like to call. I haven't done this for a while. There we go. A little something I like to do with my guests every now and then. A little something that we like to call rapid fire.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. All right. So now, there's going to be 2 parts of rapid fire right here. And the first part is you need to choose either or.
Okay.
And then the second part is I'm going to say something and you need to say the first word that comes to mind.
Okay.
This is going to be good with it.
This is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. All right, so either or. Number 1, the ability to fly or to be immortal.
Fly.
Number 2, Star Wars or Star Trek.
Star Wars.
Number 3, to be a head coach in the NBA, MLB, or the NFL.
NFL.
Mountains or beaches.
Beaches.
And number 5, Jordan or LeBron.
Jordan. 100%.
All right, okay. So now here we go to the second part. So now I'm going to say something. You got 5 more coming up to you, and the first word that comes to mind. Youngstown State University.
Championships.
Number 2, Biden.
Retire.
Trump.
Champion.
Kamala.
Fake.
Wellington.
Great foundational place. Proud to be from it.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So we always like to do the rapid fire in there, have a little fun. Again, there's always I have a list of people that I always like to have to come on the show, and there's always some that I kind of flirt with. That'd be kind of cool, but I knew having you come on here would be great. It's we go back a long way, and it's again to see what you've accomplished is you may not hear it as much as you should, but I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great stuff, man. It really it's inspiring to know that there are a couple of goofballs from out in the sticks in Ohio, and then again to see you up there and getting shout outs and winning national championships and stuff. It's awesome in every sense of the word.
Well, and Scott, I got to say that what you've accomplished has been, as I look back, we were talking a few years ago. I remember we sat down and had a couple Kool-Aids at Forts, and there was one thing you said that made a tremendous impact on me. I was very blessed several years ago to get explained what I consider the truth as far as taught, and saved by, the blood of Jesus Christ. And the one thing you said to me that I thought was tremendously incredible was that you didn't like when people always said, well, what you need to do is. Like when people will talk to you about what you need to do is, and it's such a big turnoff. And I took that to heart. I said, you're absolutely right, because nobody likes to be preached to. Nobody likes to be that. And
I
made
would
it a
shut
point.
down when people when they start
100%.
doing this right here. I shut down every time.
Yeah. Now,
Because usually those people are very flawed.
Well, the reality is that all of us,
Correct.
all of us, whether we profess as Christians or not, we're all very flawed. We've all fallen short of the glory. And so for anybody to say what you need to do, I always found it a lot more effective to try to live an example and try to be an example where you are more effective to where they ask you about how you got to what you're doing versus saying, hey, you need to. But you taught me that. And I think it's so true, because when you think about everybody that is in your face and telling you what you have to do, all that stuff, and how it just turns people off. And so that's what you've been a tremendous influence on me in there in that space. So
Well, I'm glad I could.
and you're somebody that I have a ton of respect for too.
Well, thank you.
The artistic capabilities, the fighting, that's what we were just talking about, before we sat down, being in tremendous shape for I've got to get there. I've got to get back there. I got so sloppy.
You know what to do.
Out of the way,
There's nothing I can tell you don't know. Come on, you know what to do.
Right.
It just do it.
But I like to eat. Those wings are so, those wings at Red Iron Grill are the best.
It's been a while since I've had them, but I've heard.
They're the best
Look,
wings.
You may not believe
traveled-
this. I am a fiend for ice cream. A fiend for ice cream.
Ooh.
I love ice cream more than anything, and I there's not right now, but usually there's at least a pint or two in the freezer.
What's your poison?
Jenny's. There's Jenny's ice cream, and there's nothing else. And it's made in Cuyahoga Falls, so it's not far from here. Jeni You can get them, and I just had, matter of fact, for Thanksgiving, I had the peanut butter and chocolate flecks. It's the best ice cream I've ever had.
Well, we're gonna reach out to them after the show and see if we can get a sponsorship
That's
and
what I'm
maybe a
saying.
supply or
Hey,
something
hook
here.
us up.
Anybody know anybody?
I'm a
at
fan.
Jenny's?
I'm a fan. Matter of fact, I was in Meyer a couple months ago, and I was getting pissed because they only have, Jenny's has a couple dozen or even more, probably even 30, 40 flavors now. But in Meyer's, they only have 4 flavors. But there was a guy who was coming around, and it was funny because I got into a 3-minute discussion with this guy right there in the aisle about, no, you want to get the Johnny one, you want to get there, you want to get the honey Briscoe, blah, blah. And guess what? He ended up getting 2 out of the 4 that were there, and I'm willing to bet I changed his life. It's that good. I'm not kidding. Jenny's Ice. Although, here's the thing: if anybody out there from Jenny's Ice Cream is listening, if you're open to some feedback, this is what I'll say. I did get they had a lemon bar, phenomenal. But ice cream, there's a certain point where you can kind of get out of your lane. If you're going to have like the chocolate and peanut butter like I had for Thanksgiving, it's fantastic. But they had a jelly donut flavored ice cream. And when I was eating it, I wanted a jelly donut. I didn't want the jelly donut ice cream.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Right.
But anything that I've had, like I've had the cookies and cream, and I've had the vanilla, and they're standard. It's the
I
best.
struggle with the jalapeno ones. Like
Not a
I
fan.
like spicy food and stuff, but having that spice in ice cream just, I don't know.
Not a fan. I'm not the spicy ice cream. I don't know about that.
Right.
But I am. Look, if you're going to get lean, eat a lot of lean meat, eat a lot of lean protein. I eat a lot of lean chicken, which can get very boring unless you're into hot sauce.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I'm into different hot
Spicy,
sauces and stuff like that. And it's, look, I love sweets. In the end, what it boils down to, it's either sugar or carbs that are going to be the problem for most people.
Right.
For me, it's sugar. I like carbs. but
How
I
do you know
love
the
sugar.
difference? How do you determine the difference? Is
So-
it just a matter of how your body responds to what
A
you
lot
eat?
of
Is it
yeah.
just trial and error?
At our age, it can be. With athletes, it's a little different because if you're getting if your body is putting out that much effort, especially at that young age, you can kind of eat what you want, which is what sucks when you stop doing that.
Well, when I was 40, I went from 318, dropped down to back. I think the lowest I got was 247, and I was
remember
running,
this.
and I was getting back into really where I felt like I was sprinting as well as when I played.
I remember this was like 2010. I remember
Yeah.
when you did this because I
And
remember on Facebook.
for whatever reason, I cut carbs.
Mm-hmm.
I really watched the carb intake, and my sugar ended up spiking. It was the craziest thing.
Well, it depends on what type of sugar you're getting too, because you got to remember, is even if you're taking it, like for me, my sugar, more often than not, my sugar comes in through drinks. I love sweet drinks, and especially when I'm working on my art. I love sipping on cherry flavored whiskey, which
There
is
you go.
it's a sugar based booze. So there's a lot of sugar in that. In the end, if you're taking in something like a Diet Coke, which says it still has sugar in it, although it's not sugar, you're still going to get you're still going to get a spike in your glycose. You're still going to get a glycose spike. You're still going to have that because your body's still going to metabolize it the same way. So even though it doesn't have sugar in the drink, or you get a Coke Zero, Coke, it still has sugar in it. So you're still going to take that in. In the end, what I recommend is people ask me what kind of diet. I stick to the paleo diet, which is simply just food, which is I get my vice is I love ice cream, which I mentioned before, but I also love sugar drinks. But I eat a lot of meat, a lot of vegetables.
Yeah.
A lot of meat, a lot of vegetables. Not much when it comes to fruit, with the exception of I love cottage cheese with either peaches in it or
You using canned or natural peaches?
yeah, just canned. Yeah, sometimes.
With sugary syrup.
Or what? Yeah, it is. I know it is,
Right.
but I like when I'm getting if I'm having a meal or if I'm having some cottage cheese, and 80% of it is cottage cheese and 20% of it is sugar and fruits. Yeah, it's all right. Because again, the thing is, when it comes to workout, I just keep it simple. I'll do 3 days a week of strength training and 3 days a week of cardio. And cardio is either running or boxing. And strength training is I mix it up between upper body, lower body, and full body.
That boxing is no joke for conditioning.
I love it.
I just
I love it.
When I was just out of school, I was training with a buddy of mine that was in a fraternity, was a black belt in Shotokan karate. Mm-hmm. And so we were training a little bit, but then for conditioning, we'd put the headgear on, put the boxing guards on, and we would go, and it's amazing you're watching a boxing match and you see the guy like getting tired. You're just like, just hit him. And you're like, you got nothing left after that 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever
right.
We were doing we'd do a round for like 5 minutes and you get to the point where you're like, the gloves felt like they weighed 400 pounds.
Yeah, your arms are jello. Yeah,
oh
they
my
can't
gosh.
move. Yeah. It's the biggest thing is, especially when it comes, as we were talking before, like when it comes to in football, it's rare that you're going to go whistle to whistle more than a minute. It's rare that happens.
No, you're 4 to 6 seconds of,
right. That's what I'm saying. Like if it's a 30-second play, that's a long time. A minute you almost never see.
No, you don't even see that long really.
But
it takes a guy 10 or 11 seconds to go from goal line to goal line.
Right. Whereas in a ring or a cage, you're minutes at a time. So the word that I always used whenever I'm training somebody, even if we're just doing a conditioning training, is pace. A great example is the one guy that, the lineman I was training. It's just like, look, you're not going for 30 seconds. You need to go for 3 minutes. So if we're going to do a 30-second drill on this box jump here,
right.
What I always say is, I don't care how many jumps you get. I care about the pace you keep for 30 seconds. Because if the first 4 seconds you get 7 jumps, and then at the end of 30 seconds you end up with 9 jumps, that's a terrible pace. So you're going to get broken if we need to go for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You need to control that pace more than anything. So, like example, when I run, I'll run 3 miles all the time. Once I hit the 1.5 mile mark, I start going up every lap. I start going up just a 0.1 on every lap. So it started at 6 miles an hour. And then once I hit 1.5 miles, I end up at 6.6 miles to finish up the 3 mile run. Why? I'm going faster on that last lap. Now, if I went from 6 to 6.6, it's going to kill me.
Right.
But if I go 6.1, no big deal. 6.2, 6.3.
Gradually. It's turning up the heat on the boarding front.
Correct. And that's the same way that I will drill. And when I'm training somebody, like case in point, if we're doing box jumps for 30 seconds and you got 25 in the 30 seconds, great. That's your zero barrier now. You can't get less than 25 when you do this.
Right.
Boom, boom. Now, the big question is always, okay, you just did 25 box jumps. What happens when I throw punches and kicks at you now? Can you defend? Can you react? Can you move? So there's so much chaos and stuff going on. It's always about pace. I need to inflict damage. I need to defend. I need to move. I need to counter. I need to get a new angle. And then I need to breathe on top of all of that. So the biggest thing is understanding pace, and the best way to understanding pace, stay calm. Because if the analogy that I was taught and that I always use is if you go out in there into a ring or a cage, try to imagine like a scuba diver, there's 2 tanks on your back. One of them is your cardio. Now you've earned that through hard work. A lot of that is genetic, sure, but hard work, getting your pace up that we talked about, get that cardio going. Great. Okay, cool. You control that. The second tank is your anxiety. It's like hitting the NOS in a race car. You got one shot at that anxiety. So a great example for that in the UFC is when Conor McGregor fought Jose Aldo and got Jose Aldo so pissed off he wanted to kill Conor. Conor stepped out of the way, landed that knockout left hand, and knocked him out in 13 seconds.
Right.
Because even if you're in better shape than me, if I've got you so emotional that you want to rip my heart off, and rip my heart out, and I'm cool and I'm calm and I'm relaxed, and everything you come at me, and, by the way, and I'm also in great shape, I can control my pace, you're going to burn through that anxiety, and especially if we've got 15 minutes or 25 minutes to fight, I'm going to own you. And again, even if you have that flurry of 30 seconds, even if it's a flurry for 2 rounds, I got 3 more rounds with you.
You know, it's so interesting you say that because, you know, I tell people that when I played, I wasn't going to overpower you. I mean, I was a 6 foot, 240-pound tight end in a 6'5" world. So I wasn't going to overpower anybody. I would get into people's heads.
Smart.
Whereas the first play of the game, I knew that an official wasn't going to throw a flag for holding. I would come off the ball. I would literally grab the guy and take him down, and just to see how he responded. Now, the All-Americans, most of the guys would get up wanting to fight. He's whining to the officials and that. I'm messing with him all night.
You know you got him.
The guys the All-Americans, they just went back to the huddle. They didn't say a word, and I was just like, oh, man.
Business.
You know, this is going to be a long night. And
combat sports are like that, too.
no doubt.
Yeah.
And if I could mess with them, if I could, you know, do something to get him whining and complaining, I'm taking him out of his game, and it would generally go in my favor.
When it works for you, it's a great strategy. When it doesn't, like you said, a great example for that back in the UFC is when Conor took on Khabib.
Mm-hmm.
Khabib took over the division when Conor left to go box and do his whiskey thing. Conor comes back. And in my opinion, I think Conor knew going in, okay, I'm overmatched against this guy.
Right.
But if I'm going to talk about you and your family and your religion and this and that, and I'm going to take my whiskey and I'm going to toast it with the boss right here and I'm doing this all in front of the world, if I get you emotional, it'll work. But
100%. 100%.
it didn't work against that man. If you watch all the conferences leading up to it, you know, Conor's behaving like Conor, and Khabib just sitting there like, October 6th, we have date. We October 6th. October 6th, we find out. And if you watch that fight over, in the second round, when Conor is on his back against the cage, Khabib is standing over top of him, and he's not getting down on his knees to finish. He's standing over him. He could have gotten down on his knees, and he didn't. He stood over top of him, raining down punches and elbows like a schoolboy on a schoolyard. And as he's doing that, he's saying to Conor, let's talk now.
Right.
So Conor McGregor, for all the money he has and all the clout that he has and all the Lamborghini yachts and everything he has and all the 1,200 count thread count silk sheets that he has, when he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's sweating, he's thinking about that man over top of him, smashing his face, saying, let's talk now.
Mm-hmm.
So, when it doesn't work.
Well, when it doesn't, see, and even in the game of football, and then I would even teach kids that I was playing or coaching, and say, hey, you don't have to, especially when you're playing against a team, like I remember being in Fort Wayne and Carmel. You know, we'd play against Carmel in the playoffs, and these guys are all 6'6", 280 across the front, coming
monsters.
out. They're huge. They're monsters.
Yeah.
But it's like trying to help a kid understand. It's like you don't have to blow that guy off. You're not going to. Right. You've got to get in that guy's way long enough.
Toe to toe, you're not going to win.
No, but you've got to get in his way long enough, or the coach has got to be smart enough. We've got to be smart enough to get you in a position to maybe have a tackle helping you, double team, or something to neutralize him long enough for your back to make a cut.
Yeah.
Because the idea, I don't expect you to come out and blow him off the ball. It's not going to happen. It's ludicrous.
Right.
But you got to be able to. It's not about that. It's about doing your job and being effective.
Well, it's like we were saying before. It gets back into that mentality of the strategy again. Whether you're a general or you're a coach, it's like, okay, strength, weakness, strength. How do we maneuver this around?
Yep.
To win.
Right.
And and make no mistake, combat sports is politics too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the analogy that I like to use in this recent election is like, look, not only the legacy media that I already talked about a little bit, but Kamala Harris, when it came time for the election, I felt like to bring it back to a sports analogy, let's say you played 10 games throughout the year, and every team you played were only allowed to have 5 players on the field. And you had 11. And you went 10-0, and you won by 80 points in every game. And then you get to go against Marshall, and it's 11 on 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that's what a lot of this election was, where it was just like, okay, it's clear who the legacy media was rooting for.
No doubt.
Clear. And if you don't think that, well, then clearly
Well,
you're not being honest.
I think you have to look at the articles or the storylines and what they talk about. When you have everything negative against Trump, everything, it's like, come on, you can't tell me that there's something that he did right. And that's where I think when you talk about politics and all that, that's why I don't pay attention to the mainstream media, because they've been wrong on so many different sides on what
consistently, without apology, by the way.
Yes, and they don't come up, and no correction stories, from the laptop to Russia to all this, and it's just, to me, it's like you've lost credibility, and you're slanted one direction.
Right, and it's so clearly slanted.
Right.
And here's the thing: if Donald Trump is the absolute worst human being, like they make him out to be, then why do you have to lie about him?
Right. Well, and I say as somebody, because I everybody knows I voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And I've been
you've
an
been
advocate,
outspoken,
and I've been
for a long
outspoken
time.
about it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you think for a second, like when he said Mexico, I'm going to have Mexico pay for the wall. Do you think any of us? I didn't think that Mexico was going to open their checkbook. It was a way that he was going to get it paid for through some sort of result.
This guy makes deals, and he understands that by saying that to a microphone and a camera, then in about 8 months he's going to be sitting down to somebody to talk about some type of a deal. That's going to be that's what this guy does.
Well, and I've heard people say, he went bankrupt. He filed bankruptcy. It's like a lot of people file bankruptcy.
Sure did.
It doesn't make them bad people. It may, in some cases, there's laws out there that protect people from losing all their assets by filing bankruptcy and by getting. I mean, Walt Disney filed bankruptcy. Is he a bad guy, or was he a bad guy?
Well,
now
look, here's the thing: when it comes to politics and a lot of times when it comes to religion too, I always like to tie it back to sports. Here's what I mean: if you are a Cleveland Browns fan, die-hard Cleveland Browns fan, that's your team, that's your team, that's your team, and then you hear that Ben Roethlisberger is putting his hands on the hostess from Chili's. Right. Well, then you want him kicked out of the league, and you want any game he's ever won taken away, including his Super Bowls. But if you're a Steelers fan, you want him to sit one half of one preseason game, and that's it.
Right.
It's the exact same thing.
Right.
So the idea that when you look at the Biden administration, since I've been an adult, I have never seen an administration that was worthy of ridicule as much as the behavior of people in this administration.
Right.
But there was next to nothing when it came to it. Why? Because they're on the wrong team, and you got to root for this team. It's like when you stack the deck so long, and you look at the debates, and you look at the things that now the first debate with Trump and Biden, in my opinion, I think they sent Biden out there as a sacrificial lamb. In my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion from people that I listen to that happen to be right about certain things.
Right.
Joe Biden spent his entire life wanting to be president of the United States, and he got to be president of the United States, and his body started to deteriorate. And then we were told it wasn't.
Right.
And we were told it wasn't, and his body started to deteriorate. He and his wife didn't want to give up the gig, and then they were forced to by his performance. That debate doesn't usually happen until September. They happened in June. To put him out there, to show the world that this man wasn't capable of it, and to get the other candidate out there. And I feel bad. Again, most of my life I've absolutely leaned left, and I feel bad for the Democratic Party because when I would listen to John F. Kennedy talk, I'd be inspired.
Absolutely.
When I would listen to Bill Clinton talk, say what you want about his personal behavior. He was inspiring. He was good at
He could move people. He could set a vision.
Barack Obama was a great talker, a great spokesman. Say what you want about his politics, about his his policies. We'll get into that, but he was a great speaker. And when I would see Kamala Harris, I felt like I was watching a Manchurian Candidate. Meaning, I felt like this was somebody who was so. Now again, Trump he's the bull in the china shop, and then we had somebody who was so completely controlled. And when somebody would ask a direct question, and she was not able to answer it, or I shouldn't say not able.
She wouldn't have to.
Wasn't willing.
She wouldn't have to answer it.
For a lot of that,
nobody would hold her accountable to answer it.
And then, like just like if you guys played against 5 people every day or every week, and then the championship game you had to play against 11. Well, that's what happened. Is she got to go play against 11, and the American public said, "We're not buying it.
Yeah,
we're done."
Well, I don't know how you go from having the lowest. Well, first off, politically, I think you and I are more similar. I think than we are, because I remember. I mean, I voted for Clinton's. I was raised in a Democratic house.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the guy that lived across the street from me, a great buddy of mine, Herman Porter. He was the uncle to Terry Porter, who was an NBA basketball player and the coach of the Bucks.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
And I remember having a distinct conversation with him. We're enjoying some libations and solving the world problems. And he goes, he says to me, he said. We were talking, and I was going on a conservative rant about something. And he goes, "You're a Republican, aren't you?" I said, "No, I'm not a Republican. I'm a Democrat." He looked at me like it was the dumbest thing I had ever said. And it was at that point that I realized, I'm like, man, I'm sitting here, so I don't know these sides. I got to get myself educated on what side is what and who's for what and stuff. And and as you studied politics, I've seen, and you mentioned it earlier, is how far left. I think how far extreme both sides have gone, that they've come away from each other. Whereas, the the JFK Democrats, the Scoop Jacksons, the people that were more in the middle, I think are identified with. And that's kind of the household that I was in,
Well, if you listen to stuff that like Clinton would say back in the 90s, he would talk about how, the borders are going to be secure.
100%.
And
getting people off welfare.
Well, here's something that's very interesting, too. Whenever I get around somebody that tells me that Trump is a bigot, well,
that's a tough conversation.
Well, here's one fact. Donald Trump is was the first, not only now, but he was the first president that was pro-gay marriage coming into the presidency. Mm-hmm. First one ever. So to label that person a bigot is difficult for me.
Well, and I think the people that know him, that are around him, that, he has people from all races and backgrounds around him.
He did a petition to do same-sex marriage at Mar-a-Lago not too long ago. I remember hearing about that. So it's just like, look, and again, if all day long I called you a Nazi and a bigot and a homophobe and all of these certain things, and then all of a sudden you moved in upstairs, and then we're hanging out, having a drink, and taking a picture and smiling together, at best, that doesn't add up.
No.
At worst, well, I'm full of shit. And again, when it comes down to politics and certain things like that, what matters to me more than anything is how somebody behaves. And the idea that, I grew up in thinking like, two people of the same sex want to get married? Sure. People want to grow pot in their house? Sure. I don't have a problem with any of that. And then once it turns into, wait a minute, Leah Thomas probably should not be competing. You're a bigot. Wait, what? No, I deal with athletes. I coach athletes. That's not right. What's the matter with you, Scott? Are you a bigot? No.
It's the fact that a male body is designed so much bigger, stronger, oxygen intake, whatever, that it's unfair. It's absolutely unfair.
Well, here's the one thing that ends up kind of ending the whole argument is we can sit here and talk about Leah Thomas's and other examples all day long. How come there is no example of one single person converting from a female to a male that's coming in and dominating sports?
Right.
Not one.
Good point.
And I can't think of any. And as far as I know, there is no rule that the NFL does not accept women. I'm willing to bet that if there was a Princess Diana out there that really could do the things that that character could do, that any team in the NFL would be willing to put a jersey on her.
No doubt.
And give her the ball.
Right.
Because sports, in my opinion, are the ultimate meritocracy. Because the idea that, I mean, your marred shots and things like that, you're going to have that. But even marred shot, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing, everybody. If I owned a sports team, and let's say I'm a horrible racist, and I own my sports team, and I hate anybody other than white people, but I have all the races that are, whatever you want to check down the list, whatever, that are on my team, because I want to win a championship. If I hate you, but I don't do anything to you, I don't give a shit. I don't care. If I owned a sports team and you happen to be a part of a different race and I didn't like that race and I hated that race for whatever reason, but I paid you big money to go out and win a championship for me, but when behind closed doors I sat there and cursed you, who cares?
Right.
I don't care. Guess what? I don't care. There's a difference between hate speech, hate think, and hate crime. There's a difference.
100%.
Now,
100%.
if I hired you and you were of a different race, and then I fired you and didn't pay you because I just got off on that, that's a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
But if I hated that race and hired that race and won championships with that race, then how I feel, I don't care. It's the same thing. It's just like, you know what? I really, 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 really want to burn buildings down. Scott, how many buildings have you burned down? None. Oh, well, okay. Then you're not really a problem.
Right.
You know, but I really want to do it. Okay, but you're going to burn any buildings down? No, I'm not going to do that. It's going to get me in trouble.
Well, it's called sanity.
Right.
It's called being sane about.
Right.
You know, to me, I think racism is ridiculous to me.
Agreed.
It's why anybody's color of anybody's skin has to do with absolutely anything today. And it's what's irritating to me is that it's like, can't we just all be Americans?
Well,
Why does it matter whether you're white,
it doesn't.
brown and yellow?
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. And what happens is there are a lot of people out there, powerful people, that talk into a microphone and a camera that make a living off of people being angry about race relations.
Right.
There's a big money in that. And I remember growing up in a little town called Wellington and saying things like, wow, when we elect a black man or a black woman, cool, racism's done. And then we did. And then we reelected one. And ever since then, it was doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on banging the drum on how racist our country is. And I mean, like, okay, the analogy I like to use is we all know the ride at Cedar Point where you get into the boat and you go way up on this side and way up on this side and way up on this side and way up on this side. And sometimes you find yourself in a certain point. A good example would be right around 1990, 1991, when all the music was Motley Crue and the hair bands and all this nonsense, and we just had our fill of it, and all of a sudden here comes Nirvana. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have this push and pull. And it's not a secret. In the 60s, race relations were very challenging.
Yeah.
In the 70s and in the 80s and in the 90s, guess what? We're right around in this middle area here, and then Barack Obama comes in, and we're not racist at all. And what happens is double, triple down, bang that drum. Even though we have a black president, we still have much, much, much more work to do. Mm-hmm. Why? Because my business relies on people being angry about race.
Yeah.
So we're going to go up here, and what happens is we'll go up here, and all of a sudden you get the George Floyd and all this type of crazy nonsense over here. And I think possibly with this last election, we're getting back into more of this, because the identity politics of if you look this way or you sleep with this person or you identify with this, then you have to vote this way. I think that people are over that.
No.
And the idea that being labeled a bigot or this or whatever because you pulled the lever for this person or that person, people aren't afraid of that anymore.
Mm-mm.
And although, again, the legacy media, I know that they're scared about that, I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do. It gets back into when, even little outlets like this where people can sit down and talk about stuff. There's a great quote that says, "People are suckers for the truth," and I like that. And I think that it gets back into, not only you've been vocal about how you feel about politics, you've also been very vocal about your faith too. And I appreciate what you said. That I made an impact with the what I told you about when it comes to religion is. I feel like what it boils down to is if you have something that you can't see or touch or smell or taste, and you use that as a weapon, whether it be your religion or your faith or your gender or your skin color or your sexual proclivities or anything like that, if you're going to use that stuff as a weapon, anything like that is just you're just a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
You are a weak, shitty person. And if you're going to have to say, if I opened up every sentence with, as a heterosexual white man, I'd be laughed out of the room.
Right.
And yet people get to do that with impunity. And that's not right at all. Because like you said, either you're a human being or you're not. And if you're a human being, great. Sit down, we can have a discussion, we can learn something about each other. But if you're going to sit here and you're going to do nothing but point fingers or put the hands over your ears and la 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 la, I'm not going to listen, I'm not going to this, how the hell are you going to grow? It's the same thing. It's like if getting back to the mainstream media one last time, is if everybody you invite on your show thinks the same thing that you do,
how are you going to grow?
Not only that, but how interesting is that?
Right.
That's not interesting at all.
No, I think, I've studied John Maxwell. I'm a John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer. And one of the things that John always said is that 2% of people think, 3% of people think they think, and 95% would rather die than think.
Wow.
And that's why I really think we have political parties today.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to think. I want to identify myself as the R or the D, and then, okay, does what they say somewhat make sense? Okay, yeah, all right, I'm pulling that lever and that's it. And then now I'm going to fight to defend that position,
right,
rather than think about, hey, does this position really make sense? Can government really make it better for us when they waste so much money?
Government can't even thin traffic out after a baseball game.
Right.
What are you talking about?
So that's why I don't, I'm a proponent of lesser government than bigger government, and it's, and we can get into discussions and all that, but anything that we can take and give back to the states and let the states determine for themselves, I think is better. And that's all that anything was done with this abortion thing and the Roe versus Wade thing is let the states decide that. The U.S. government doesn't have to worry about that. The U.S. government has to worry about protecting us and protecting our borders. And that's it. Let everything else fall within the state governments.
Agreed. Let's get the borders secure. Let's fill in the potholes. Let's make sure that the next time the train gets derailed in East Parliament, that we get that taken care of. That type of stuff.
Yeah. I'm not against immigration. I think we get some great people that come across the border and do some great things to help us. Sign the guest book.
Right. Exactly.
Come in through the gate. Right. There's a process. There's a law. There's laws that we have to become an American citizen, and this is a land that's built on immigration.
And when you talk to people that have gone through that process, and ask them what they think about the people that are hopping over, and getting the special treatment that they've been getting. They're the ones that are more pissed off about it than people that are born here.
No doubt.
And rightfully so, because you've had to jump through the hoops. You've had to go through all the process. You've had to take the steps. And it takes a long time to do that. And you have to, there's a whole vetting process in which you have to go through. But yet, look, the bottom line is, if you're going to let people into your home without checking who they are and why they're here and who they're with and how long they're going to be here, well, you're up to something.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I don't know what that is. That's the question. I can't answer that. Because if I opened my front door and left it unlocked and people just hung a sign outside that said, "Hey, come on in," and then all of a sudden next morning there's 30 people in here, I'm wondering what's happening. That's obviously that's disingenuous. That's bullshit.
Right.
So what's going on?
And the whole idea of gun control, but yet the people that are what our politicians have armed security around them, but yet we can't protect ourselves. That's just mindful. It's just crazy to me. And people talking about you can't have now fully automatic weapons. 100%. Who needs a fully automatic weapon? But I think having high capacity magazines. Hey, if I got people coming at my house and defending my house or invading my house that aren't supposed to be there, and you're going to limit me to 5 rounds,
right?
I'm dead.
Well, again, I know how to handle myself, and I can, with my bare hands, I can defend myself, maybe one other person. With a weapon, I can defend property. I can defend multiple groups of people, and it's there. The bottom line is to try to take the guns away from people that should have the guns, or if there are any human beings out there that should have the guns, you don't take the guns away from those people, because the guns are out there, and the bad people are going to get the guns, and they already have the guns. So.
That's why I think it's ludicrous, some of the businesses that say we don't want you to carry guns. So the first thing, when I look at a storefront that says, not allowed to carry in here, who's that going to affect? The law-abiding citizens are going to leave it in the car.
Right.
The criminals are going to look at that and say, wow, I can walk in here, there's nobody going to contest me, and I can do what I want. It's freedom. It's free reign.
You're right.
But, and kind of like, I'm just personally against, I don't like open carry. I don't like people open carrying a weapon because I think it draws so much attention to it. Conceal it, because I would think that if I'm a criminal casing a place and walk in and I see somebody with a gun on the hip, guess what? You're my first target.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would think. I don't think like a criminal. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't know. But hopefully I don't.
Well, no, that's.
But I think when you have open carry and you're advertising it, you're asking for problems. It's like I would rather. Yeah. Just keep it covered, keep it in the blank, keep whatever, and then if you need it, hopefully you don't ever need it.
You know what, you're right, because even a few times that I've gone like the gas station and stuff and find myself different hours of the day and night and going to the gas station, there's somebody in front of me, I see the pistol on their hip, and I'm in a gas station in Elyria or in Lorain, and it's 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and okay, now I'm looking at somebody that has deadly force on their hip. I see it. It's right there. So if I can see that and I'm not a threat, well, what if somebody comes in who has deadly force in their back pocket and they're not showing it and they're planning to rob? It's just like, okay, this is going to be a shootout now. And, again, it gets into, I'm confident knowing that with what I can do with my bare hands, I can take care of myself. But, when it comes to a weapon, it puts, in my opinion, too much power in the hands of too many people that don't know how to wield it.
Right.
And it gets back into the discipline and the training like we were talking about. When you go to the bars at night at 2 a.m, it's not the guys and the gals that train in MMA and train in combat that are pushing over the tables and getting into fights at night. We're the ones that are breaking that stuff up. Why? There's literally a video of a 6-year-old redhead girl making me tap out on the internet right now. How can I act like a badass? How can I do that? I can't. But make no mistake, put your hands on the people that I'm with, we can figure it out. the people that have the training, the people that have the discipline, the people that not only know this weapon, but they can take the weapon apart blindfolded, and they go to the range, and they're going to the target range with moving targets, and those aren't the people that are gangbanging and taking over the liquor stores at night.
Nope.
They're the ones that have their weapon on their ankle, and they go to the mall in Florida, and some guy comes in there with a knife and starts stabbing people, and they put the threat away. Mm-hmm. That's who that person is.
Right.
I want that person with a gun all day long.
100%.
All day long. I want that person with a gun in a school. I want that person with a gun in an airport. I want that person with a gun at the grocery store. Why? Read the news. Mm-hmm. People walk around and do crazy stuff. And there's also a lot to be said when people aren't trained. In most people, general, in public, if some crazy shit goes down, they're just going to freeze.
Right.
They're not going to do anything. You go to a mall, or like the famous one here in Ohio, where you go to the grocery store and you have the knife and you're walking around stabbing. There was a video of that woman walking around for minutes in that grocery store, just holding a 6-inch blade, walking around before she followed the mother and the kid outside and stabbed.
That's
the kid
one
and
in
killed.
North Olmsted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like, this person is walking through the grocery store for a good 5 to 10 minutes just with carrying this open blade. And I'm watching this video thinking, if I was in the store and I turned around and I saw somebody doing that, well, I'm going to hand the phone to my girlfriend and I'm going to say, you call 911, and I'm going to take that cart and I'm going to use, no, you don't work here. You're not an employee. You're somebody that has a blade out in the open. Mm-hmm. You're not stable at all. And here's the good news. I know how to stop you before you kill a 3-year-old, which is what that person did. Now,
yeah, and that actually hit close to home. My niece was good friends with the mother of the 3-year-old.
Okay.
Grew up with her.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I didn't personally know that, but it's, yeah.
It's when you hear about things like that, and again, it's not about being a superhero. It's not being a badass or being tough. It's like, you know what? Okay.
It's about protecting your fellow man. It's about protecting the
Correct.
people around you.
I'm trained. I know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how to take, especially when you take a look at that woman, that's not somebody who's fit. That's not somebody who's trained. That's somebody who's sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And guess what? If you're sick, my shopping cart's going to put you down.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go ahead and put me on the news, and as a white man, and that was not a white woman, if I went and put a car, and you put me on the news about, you can go ahead and call it a hate crime. Don't care, because that kid would not be dead. Mm-hmm. And just like the case of the guy in the New York subway, who choked out the guy on the subway, and they're trying him for murder.
Right.
That guy was harassing and hurting people that entire ride. And I'll tell you this right now. If any of you are ever on a subway or in a bar or on an airplane with me and somebody starts acting like that, you better be thankful that I'm sitting next to you. And I'm going to do something about it. And I'll say it in front of a microphone. I'll say it in front of a camera. I'll say it in front of a microphone on the stand. I learned how to use my hands because the bottom line is, I don't give a damn how big you are. I get my hands around you. I can put you down. Mm-hmm. And if that means I'm going to put you down because you're not going to hurt anybody else, then I'll suffer the consequences after that.
Yeah.
It's just part of when I'm coaching, especially if I'm teaching somebody how to fight and teaching somebody how to punch and kick and strangle and do all these moves, I'll say over and over again, I'm going to train you. I don't care if you get into a ring or cage. If you do, great. I'm preparing you. What I care about is 2 things. Number 1, you use this to help somebody. And number 2, if you like this and you enjoy it, teach somebody, share it.
Right.
That's it. If I feel like there's a responsibility. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I'm trained. And if something like that goes down, yeah, you know what? Sorry. It's weird because when I do travel a lot and I'll do certain things and I'll get into airports and certain like that, and I can always tell. I can always look across the room and see like, okay, this person's trained. This one isn't. This person here could be a problem. This one's probably not sober. I mean, you see all that type of stuff from a mile away.
Right.
And again, I'm of the opinion that if you're trained in that, then it's a responsibility to help people out when you can. When you can, anyway.
No doubt.
But anyway, I get along. I read it for over 3 hours now.
Dude,
right?
this has been fun discussion though. But
Yeah.
you do a great job hosting
Thanks.
the podcast. Ask great questions and
Appreciate it.
have great opinions on things. And whether we difference in opinion, it's one thing that we can always be friends. And I like surrounding myself with people of different ideas because I like listening to the different ideas. I
That's
like
how you
hearing
learn.
their perspective. That's how you learn.
Yeah. How you
And that's
grow.
and how you think. But
Yeah.
it's like, but I think it's funny how one side, I'll have conversations on Facebook with different people that it's just funny to me is that how one-sided that they can be when it's more, well, if you listen to Fox News, you're an idiot. No, wait a minute. I mean,
See-
I think there's been Fox News has been right on a lot of things when they came out early.
Everything? No, but a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they've been right on the collusion thing. They've been right on Russia. They've been right on the Hunter laptop. And there's
again-
numerous things that they have done right.
Right. And
That-
again, the people that have been wrong, no apologies
No.
at all.
No.
People that have been wrong about this.
they double down.
One of my favorite videos is the one of Rachel Maddow talking about the vaccine. How if you take it, it doesn't go from this person to this person, and
Well, I'm
No apologies.
I'm still waiting for the collusion evidence from Adam Schiff. It
There
keeps
is
talking
none.
about, I've got the evidence.
no, there is not. Well,
I'm waiting for
well,
it.
you know what actually happened with that is the Durham report came out, and actually Hillary Clinton had to pay a fine because it was her team that made all that
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
But you won't hear about that on MSNBC.
No.
But they actually had to pay a fine. And it's interesting because I'll get around some people and I'll say, I'll mention something like that, like, how about the Durham report? And they'll look at me like, Scott, what's the Durham report and how do you know about it? Well, I listen to people that are right. And by the way, the people that I listen to, they're not all on this side or here. I just keep it real simple. It's like people ask me, are you conservative or are you liberal? My answer is, yeah, sure. And they're like, what are we talking about? Because if you break into my house, they're going to carry you out. So
I'm breaking into my house. I'm pretty conservative.
I'm pretty conservative, but at the same
If
time,
we're talking about, hey, what you need to do is,
right?
Scott.
Just saying, you break into my house, they're going to carry you out, and they're probably going to carry you out cold. That's the way it goes. But at the same time, if you if you are a man and you identify as a man and you want to marry another man, I don't care.
I don't care either.
Look, as far as
don't
I'm
care
concerned, if I'm not invited in the room, it's none of my business.
Right.
And why should I even know about your sexual proclivity? Why would I even know that? Why would I even care?
Why should the other stupid thing to me is why should anybody care? Why should anybody
Right.
put violence against people because they choose something that's not going to hurt me in the long run?
Well,
I
you're
don't
right.
care.
The idea to take the time to hate somebody just because of who they lay down with or their skin color, especially,
Well,
it's stupid because if you take the time to get to know somebody, there's a lot of other good reasons to hate
Well,
somebody.
religious principles just say to love. Jesus said to love everybody.
true.
It's just like, well, and he didn't say this. Now, God says some interesting things about homosexuality, but it's not. I'm not the judge. I'm not the executioner. It's not my. It's not my role. I don't care what you think. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to care about you. All right, but don't ask me to say that something is normal, or that really may or may not be. I mean, you can do what you want.
Well,
I'm not going to
agreed.
judge you for it. It's not my role.
Again, it gets back into. There's a great cartoon where there's somebody who at one point in time they're kind of leaning toward the left, and the left just keeps going. And here's the deal. Okay, when you talk about the left, you're talking about two words: the progressive movement. Progressive movement. It means it just keeps going. At no point does it stop.
No.
So once again, I remember in the 80s, like, should gay people be married? No. In the 90s, I don't care. And in the 80s, should people be able to smoke pot? No. 90s and 2000s, who cares? And then it turns into, okay, well, wait a minute. That human being was swimming on the men's team last year. Or it turns into, wait a minute, drag queen story hour for kindergartners.
Yeah, no, it's
And it at some point, and then you just kind of turn around and you're like, what is going on here? Like, you're a bigot.
You're a bigot.
Like, what's going on here?
well. At what point am I responsible to teach whatever in my home different principles? Where does school stop, and where does home upbringing and principles
that's
within
where,
the home begin?
As a non-parent, my opinion can only go so far on that. And I don't want to. My opinion can only just be that, because I can say whatever I want because I don't have a stake in the game.
Yep.
My opinion, okay, and I said this when Chris came on the show. Growing up, I can't remember a single teacher ever saying who they're going to vote for, or getting into anything that would be considered remotely political. At best, we had a picture of Reagan hanging up in the room or in the school because he was the president at the time. But
Yeah.
that would be it. We would learn about the election is coming up and this is how to do it, and it was all very pragmatic.
It wasn't slanted.
No.
It wasn't. There was no agenda.
Great, yeah,
Right.
not at all. And it's look, and it gets into. There are some groups of people on this planet that for a long time were figuratively and sometimes physically really held back. You could look at from Rock Hudson all the way. I mean, there's a long history of that. I understand that. And again, back into the boat going back and forth, it has gone from the Rock Hudson days to now it's payback time. And when you look at a lot of media, a lot of entertainment, there are a lot of people with alternative lifestyles. And again, and I'm a person that's been around that world for a long time. I get it. I understand it. And for the longest time, if you were part of that industry that millions of people around the world were enjoying, but you had to shut up about what you were into in your private life, I understand how hurtful that could be. But now it's turned into, I'm going to use my weapon, or I'm going to use my sexual proclivities as a weapon against you. And if you're not completely 100% down with it, then you're going to be canceled, or you're going to lose your job, or you're going to whatever. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
Well, and I think that it comes back to what the election was about. I think people are waking up to that. You've got the middle. You've got one side that's always going to vote one way. You got another side that's always going to. It's that middle ground.
Which is where I'm in the middle there.
Yeah, and I think people kind of looked at it and said, this is getting insane. This is just some of the stuff that we're dealing. The ideals, the ideologies are insane.
And the gaslighting.
I'm not against. I think it's time for a woman president.
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all.
I just didn't think that was the right woman.
Give us a qualified, real good. I mean,
well, how can you go from I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 27% approval rate as a vice president, that all of a sudden this is our girl? That made no sense to me.
They had no choice. They had to.
Well, but all of a sudden all this
right. It didn't add up.
It was overnight. It was like everybody is like, she's our hero. She's the savior. She's gonna. Right. I'm like, well, what has she done? What has she done?
Not much.
But
they were saddled with her. There's nothing else they could do.
Right.
Because, well, Joe held on as long as he could, and then it got to the point where them not having any primaries was a big problem.
No doubt.
It was a big problem because they could have had who knows who could have came up through that. There are some good quality people in the Democratic Party that could have come up and made an impact.
Well, I think Shapiro. I think Shapiro in Pennsylvania. I think 4 years from now. I think 4 years from now, J.D. Vance versus Shapiro is going to be an interesting.
I think so too.
And I think it's going to be the first time that we've got people that have backgrounds, that have results, that have
And those
something
two on a debate stage would be very interesting.
I think it's been interesting the last 4 or 5 elections that
Yeah.
you sit down and you got to think, out of 300 million Americans, this is our choice.
Right.
And
Everybody seems like that.
I'm going to say this for the record, and I've said this before. I am not personally a Trump fan. I would like his ideas. I like the idea of America first. I like the idea of securing the border. I like the idea of what he did with the economy. I remember when I could put gas in my car and I could actually afford it. I remember when we could go get groceries and you can afford it. But anytime that you have, like the pandemic changed a lot of things, but anytime inflation, the definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. Mm-hmm. And when you sit here and dump stimmy checks after stimmy checks after stimmy checks into the economy, and it's going to raise the prices of everything, and then people stand back and like, well, what happened? Well, most people don't understand that. It's basic economics.
Agreed. And at the same time all that's going on, and we're being told that everything's fine, and in the same breath turning around talking about how there's another $100 billion that just went to Ukraine.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So for people to turn around and say, I can't fill up my tank, how much money just went over there? For what?
And we
For
got
who?
and we got veterans living on the streets, but
Right.
yet we're paying for people to come across illegally. It's madness. It's literally. And I think that hopefully, winning both houses and having the presidency, that we can turn the heat off of this liberal boiling frog and get things a little bit more sane and under control, and see where
a
it goes.
a little back to pragmatic, a little
Yes.
more. A good example for that would be if you watch a lot. I don't watch a lot of actual just like TV, but if you watch commercials today, a good tell of where we are as a society is watching commercials. And growing up back in the day, I would see like commercials for Subaru, and they'd be talking about powertrain warranties and gear ratios and torque and horsepower and all this. And now when you see a commercial for Subaru, it's talking about how they're made with love, and they show like little
no
puppies
doubt.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Is Subaru really made with love? Because last I checked, they also make attack helicopters.
I had a Subaru.
So what is it?
I had a Subaru for about 6 months, and it was a newer vehicle, and literally between oil changes, my oil pressure light is coming on. Before that, and I'm taking it into them, we're doing testing, and they said, well, that falls under normal standards. I said, not for me, you can have it back. And I got into something else, but I don't know.
Well, you get it, though. I mean,
There's a lot of them out there, but it didn't work out for me.
Well, I tell you what, there's I think that to sum it up and just bring it to take a step back and look at everything from 1,000 miles away when you're talking about the things that we've been talking about here is whether it be personal goals and the mind versus the body, also saying one thing, behaving another way, politics and this and that.
Right.
In the end, as a species, we're either going to have to come together and agree on just what the fuck reality is.
Well, it's all relative, right? Reality according to who, right?
Right, and that's my point. That's going to be the argument. It's like the reality of if I hit you in the face, it's going to hurt. How about that reality?
How about you're a trained guy? I don't want you hitting me in the face.
Well,
as big as I am,
Well, but the point is that the reality of it is you can have all the good vibes in the world, but like I can run a commercial and talk about how I'm going to sell my Subaru with puppies and with love, or I can show the video of how we're making attack helicopters to go in and eviscerate human beings in a split second. So am I really about the good vibes, or do I want to get paid?
Yeah, right.
And that's the way a lot of the corporate stuff is kind of going today too. They kind of stick their lick the thumb and stick it up in the air and see which way the wind's blowing. It's like, okay, we need to follow this agenda or this agenda, and then all of a sudden that agenda isn't working. Ask Hollywood how it's going in with some of the shoving down the throat of the, for lack of a better term, the agenda. Or the message, or whatever the hell you want to call it. People have had enough, and we want to be told good stories with good writing and good acting and good and good visuals, and the idea that people are turned off with, I don't want to get hit over the head with whatever your message is here. I just want to sit here in front of a screen for 2 hours and forget about what I'm going through.
Right.
That's it. And that's when you have the certain messages from certain movies, and then you have Deadpool and Wolverine just come out and they just they break the internet because they just go back to just having fun.
Right. Right.
There's always a good story that can be told when you're talking about victims and things, but in the end, we all love the hero story. We like the story of the person who has to overcome, the person who has to endure, the person who has to discover something. I mean, that's the greatest storytelling. When it comes to storytelling, the villain is always the one who's focused and driven and completely into exactly whatever it is their goal is, and they don't see themselves as the villain.
Right.
The hero is the one that's confused and not sure and has to overcome something and doesn't know their destiny. But they're not shoehorned into this, and this, which is a political agenda to make it fit into this narrative. Just tell a story.
Well, there's so much junk on TV and stuff coming out of Hollywood anymore. It's kind of, I don't like sitting down watching agendas. I want to watch a struggle victory story. I want to watch an overcoming story. And some of my favorite movies is the Kendrick brothers that have put out movies, and they're more Christian based movies. But I watched one, Overcomer, last night that I've totally forgot had come out. I never went and see it.
Did they do one about rugby?
Not sure about rugby. There was one. This one in Overcomer is about a cross country girl that was didn't know her father and was raised by grandmother and was a kleptomaniac, was stealing everything, and then got introduced to got her life changed, got a chance to meet her father, who he in itself had his own issues, and was a drug abuser and now diabetic, lost his eyesight, was kind of on a deathbed, and got the chance to actually meet his daughter and coach her to a state, because he was a cross country runner, and she got into cross country and overcame a bunch of stuff and ends up winning the state champion. It's a feel good movie.
It's awesome.
But watching her grow and change, I mean, those are the stories that I want to see. The Kurt Warner story. That's a movie that I want to see yet.
That just came out.
Yeah, last year I think, and that's next on the list.
One that I mean, it's a throwback, but it's one of my all-time favorites, and I've sat in here and watched it on the big screen a couple times. Rudy.
Oh my God! Yeah.
It's
such a classic too. But
all that kid wanted to do was play. That's it. That's all he wanted. You talk about before, where you see somebody with these incredible physical gifts. Don't care.
Yeah.
And here's a kid. They said in the great line of the movie, "You're 5 foot nothing. You're 100 nothing."
Yeah.
And you don't have a speck of talent in you, but you went toe to toe with the number one team in the nation.
Yep, and hung out with some of the best players and the best athletes, and to even get a chance to run on that field one time.
Great story.
And I mean, it just goes to show that the winning spirit isn't necessarily the guy that's. I mean, I wasn't a dominant force at Youngstown State. I was a role player, and it's a funny story.
Sir, you have two championships rings sitting right here in front of me, and I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you.
No, it's a funny story. Is that I had 13 career catches. I had 2 touchdown catches, and they happened to be in a playoff game. And the funny thing is, I get this media guy 10 years ago, and I did a Control F, put my name. It's like, is my name in this history thing at all? And it turns out it was in the record book that my 2 touchdown catches happened to be in a playoff game, and I'm tied with 4 other guys that have 2 touchdown catches. So I'm in the record book at YSU.
Wow.
So we had a reunion several years ago, or a few years ago. It was a 25th reunion of our 91 team. And Tress was the president of the university, and he hosted at his house. We're all sitting there. And we had a minute, and I said, "Hey, Coach, I've been thinking, Coach, Mark's in the Hall of Fame, Tamron, all these big legends that played at YSU. These guys were the ones that really made it happen." I said, "Hey, Coach, I don't know if you know this, but I'm in the record book with 2. I'm thinking, Coach." He turned around and walks away shaking his head. And I'm just like, what? It was funny.
If you don't ask,
right.
You know what I mean?
That's the number one rule in sales, right? If you don't ask for the sale, you never get it, right?
You got to ask. Funny. Of course.
But it was a lot of fun. And
that's awesome.
Scott, we could talk all day.
We
You're
can.
so interesting to talk to for
thanks,
sure.
man.
And,
I'll tell you what.
Thanks for inviting me out.
I can't thank you enough for coming on. We got one more salute right
Oh,
here.
my goodness.
Cheers.
Salute.
That's to you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, John Quintana.
Oh, absolutely. Scott, thank you.
Thank you much.